Morning. No, it's actually afternoon. Denise Bramble, afternoon to you. Chris Hamilton, good afternoon. Winston Jones, Gerald Pascal Manswell, greetings. Leon Graves, greetings, sir. Dean Rodney, Neil Francois is present. Jenny Cupid James, greetings to you. Rudolph Barnett, John Cato, good afternoon, sir. Cyril Mayas, good afternoon. Rude. Susan Cadogan, Gabriel Philip, Natalie F, Adarami X. Good afternoon, all. Cheppy65. Hi, Donna. Dwayne Peters. Roxanne, I missed you guys too. Yeah. But I got a little bit of time for my conference here. So this morning's meeting kind of finished a little earlier. So I said, let me jump on for a little bit as I have some time. So then, of course, Vicky Ann, Shoot Speaker 27. Good afternoon. Hyacinth Bailey, praise the Lord for his goodness. Greetings. Thank you, Hyacinth. Felix Hospitalis, Jan Walls, Gillan Jackson, greetings. Chris Hamilton says, Kamala, don't start with her nonsense. Ruth Frontin, good afternoon. Marlene Pantin, Mikkel. We are on Facebook. Margaret Thomas, hi, Margaret. Mona Ravidas, hi, greetings to you. Sarah Richards, Winston Jones, Marva James. Marcel S. Jennifer Nicholas. Indeed, happy Mother's Day to all of our nation's mothers who work so hard. Anne Suraj, good afternoon. Richard Knights, Carol Bucco, Denise Laria, Wayne Gibson. Let's see, Jennifer Nathan, hi Jennifer. Carol, well, good afternoon. I saw you had sent me a message this morning, but I wasn't sure if I could jump on this morning, but this afternoon. But as I said, I got a little time before I have to go back downstairs to join my colleagues. Alison Floyd, J. Boss McKenzie, Miriam Castellano, Marlene Pantin, Daniela Williams. Roxanne says, I'm so disappointed in PNM supporters who didn't cast their vote. I think, Roxanne, a lot of them who didn't cast their vote are having, they're having regrets now, right? Because, 98,000, the figure wasn't originally 102, and now it's been revised to 98,000 as the EBC has had opportunity to certify the results. I don't think all 98,000 of those people would have sat down in a room and decided collectively they weren't going to support the PNM. So it's individuals who made the decision thinking their one vote wouldn't count. And much to their surprise and chagrin, it did count. So here we are. Winston says, Kamala's still lying. People believe that woman, unfortunately. Yeah. Let me see. So let me jump into it. It's already 12:36. I have to go back downstairs in a little bit. But a lot has happened over the course of the last week or so. We, the elected members of Parliament, have no idea when we will have the opportunity to take our oath to be sworn in so that we can start doing the work that we were elected to do. Because to date, the government has not indicated when Parliament will convene. And in addition to that, we spoke to the clerk of the House last week when Penny Beckles Robinson received her instruments of appointment as leader of the opposition, and the clerk would have informed us that he has no idea when Parliament is going to convene. And it's unfortunate, and we see it for what it is. It is the government trying to extend the time or their tenure in office, because remember, the countdown clock to the next general election doesn't start until the first sitting of Parliament in this new term, the 13th session of the 13th Parliament. So for all this time that is passing and all the time that will continue to pass until Parliament convenes, it's free time that they have to do what they want. That doesn't count. So while some people check in 5 years and 5 years, no. They have 90 days from the date on which the first Parliament convenes to call the next election. So, yeah. Last time they took 5 years, 3 months, and 14 days. Well, I guess they're planning to top that this time. And in the interim, well, what can I say? When I looked at the combination of that cabinet, my lord, what was Kamala Persad-Bissessar thinking? Seriously, you have people who, I don't know, a certain non-entities nobody has ever heard of in the cabinet. What are their competencies? We do not know if they have any competencies, but some of them have been given senior ministerial positions. In fact, the gentleman who went up against me, Mr. Smith, I see that he is Minister of Public Administration and AI. What is his background in public administration? I don't think he has any, but he's made a cabinet minister. Interesting development. And so they used to beat up the last PNM administration talking about, well, Rowley put us at a square peg in wrong hole. What him but know about finance? And what this one know about education? And all of that. And when we look at the people that they put in these positions, what does Rudal Munilal know about energy? What is his background? As far as I know, Rudal Munilal has a legal certificate, so I think he's licensed to practice law as far as I'm aware, but I am not aware that he has any background in energy. In fact, he was not the shadow minister for energy, but in fact, that was David Lee, who is now made Minister of Housing. And we now have 3 ministers of housing, David Lee, Anil Roberts, and Philip Edward Alexander. You put 2 of the most despicable people that you could have found to serve in housing. I could tell you stories about Anil Roberts' track record when it comes to the housing ministry back when he was Member of Parliament for Dabadi Omera, and the stories that I've heard about how many people got houses and the amount of houses some people got. And but Mrs. Persad-Bissessar couldn't find anybody else. And is that ministry such a hefty and weighty ministry that you needed 3 ministers? 3. And I saw that Mr. Philip Alexander, on his first day on the job, brought his son with him, his son who previously disowned him, his son who we were told would have signed a deed poll to change his name, his last name, that is, to drop Alexander and take up the last name of Hussain. All of a sudden now his son is back in his good graces. We'll see where that goes. You are the minister appointed by the Prime Minister, having been brought to the Senate, and you are making your way. I haven't seen any other of the ministers bring any family member to walk through. Your family member can come to the swearing in, but insofar as it pertains to your first day on the job, becoming acquainted with the office and meeting the staff, what was the need for your son to accompany you? What is that a signal of? Can we expect to hear a couple months down the road or even before that he gets a job in the ministry and a high-level job at that? Okay. You see, they've already started the nonsense, as someone said earlier. I was looking at the picture of their first cabinet meeting, picture that was posted, and I'm looking to see who is the recording secretary, who is taking notes of this cabinet meeting. We were told by Verna St. Rose Graves that between 2010 to 2015, no cabinet minutes were taken. Right? Minutes were not taken. That's what Verna said. She was a member of cabinet. Are we to expect the same thing this time, so that when situations come up when ministers are required to recuse themselves and they choose not to recuse, there is no documentary evidence to show that they did not recuse themselves? But it's par for the course. Again, we are seeing Mrs. Persad-Bissessar showing us shades of 2010 to 2015. The largest cabinet, yet again, in the country's history. So something she claims to have learned from her first stint as Prime Minister, and some she didn't. So we went from a cabinet of 23 to a cabinet of 30-something. I saw somebody said with 3 short, they say Kamala Baba and the 40 thieves. Well, we're 3 short of the 40 thieves. Yeah. So who knows what will happen in the coming days, because they still have some people to appoint to the Senate. We have not seen Jayanti Ramdial, who was, one of the rising stars in the Senate in the last parliamentary session. She hasn't gotten anything. We have not seen Rudy Endarsing get anything. There were those who said he would be brought to the Senate. We haven't seen that possibly yet. But as he maintains, there is no rift between him and the Prime Minister. But I told you all, Ravi Ratiram, I told you all that was going to happen. I told you that she was going to bring Ravi Ratiram to the Senate. And so his removal from being a candidate for the lower house was intended to fool and to hoodwink people. Because Mr. Ratiram was one of the persons who had a big question mark over his head with respect to police investigation into human trafficking and prostitution. And there were persons for whom Mr. Ratiram was a turn-off. And I told you all that was just a strategy to fool people, to say, well, hey, look, she started clean up house already because she get rid of Ratiram and she get rid of Ram and the like. As I said, she was going to bring him to the Senate, and so said, so done. She brought him to the Senate and made him a full-fledged minister, cabinet minister, Minister of Agriculture. When we look at this man's track record, or alleged track record, in the first People's Partnership Administration, when he served on the board of PTSE, when he served on the board of TSTT, and so on, and the claims, the allegations that were made by some of his very own colleagues. Ramona Ramdial said that there was evidence of misbehavior in public office. Did he ever take her to task? Did he sue her for saying that? And she stated that on Facebook. Was she sued? Did he ever contradict what she said? I didn't see that anywhere. But even in the face of that, what is this confidence that Prasad Bisesa reposes in this man to make him Minister of Agriculture? You know how much bubble could take place there? You know how much? Anyway, we wait to see what comes out of that. But I know Mr. Ratiram is probably the happiest man in Trinidad and Tobago, because one, he has realized his lifelong ambition to be a minister of government, a cabinet minister, and he does not have the burden of representative politics, meaning he doesn't have to serve a constituency. So he gets all the trappings of ministerial position without having to meet with any constituents on a weekly basis to hear their needs to try and fix the issues. So you don't get any better than that. But just look at the people. Why does a country with a population of 1.5 million people need such a large cabinet? As we said before, it's jobs for the boys. Jobs for the boys. They beat up on the PNM for accepting the salary increase, which was one of the things that cost us the election, because the UNC was successfully able to sell that to the population, in particular public servants, that was a bad thing. And they were able to juxtapose it against the 4% that the government was offering. And then they talk about, for 10 years, Rowley telling all you tighten all your belt, tighten all your belt. But he slacking the belt and he wearing suspenders and all of that. And there, I have to admit, their social media messaging was on point. We get real licks with that. Real licks with that. The PNM's social media campaign was, compared to theirs, left much to be desired. And we paid the ultimate price for that. And we're seeing it. We're seeing it. So, we now have 3 ministries to deal with crime: the Ministry of Justice, the Ministry of Homeland Security, and the Ministry of Defense. Of course, Wayne Sturge was asked the question about what is the role of the Ministry of Defense, and he had no clue whatsoever as to what his role and function is supposed to be. And I suspect you're going to have a lot of overlapping taking place between his duties and that of Roger Alexander as the Minister of Homeland Security. So they will both be receiving cabinet minister salary and basically doing the same job. Again, we've seen the splitting of the Ministry of Works and Transport So works and transport has now gone back to works and infrastructure, as was the case between 2010 to 2015. And we have a new ministry called the Ministry of Transport and Civil Aviation. For 9 years, well, for 7 years or so, we had only one minister in that ministry. Of course, under the People's National Movement, eventually Rishi Sukai would have been added to that ministry. But to create two totally separate ministries, to my mind, makes no sense. And they brought in a man by the name of Eli Zakur. So it seems they're trying to build their 1% base, you know? So finally, after Mr. Zakur himself would have been knocking at the door of representative politics, he finally get through. So again, same thing as in 2010 to 2015, we had Stephen Cadiz holding down that ministry. At one time, Devant Maharaj was holding down that ministry. And then we had works and infrastructure. So those separate ministries. So we can expect to see the government's rental bill that the former administration brought down by consolidating ministries, by building state-owned premises so that the ministries and departments can be housed in state-owned facilities so we don't have to pay rent. Now we are going to find ourselves in a situation where the government's rental bill is going to go back up, because with all of these ministries, buildings have to be rented. So buildings that for the last few years have been empty, that are owned by the so-called 1%, we can verily expect to see some of these buildings once again occupied. At a time when the state should be looking to cut expenditure, we are increasing expenditure. So by the very first act of this prime minister to create all of these ministries, you really feel Kamla Prasad Bisesa sat down and came up with all of these ministries? You really think so? That she did that all by herself, working from home, because Whitehall is in a state according to her. The diplomatic center is in a state according to her, well, according to Barry. So imagine on the first day of work, she didn't go to the office herself to see what was the lay of the land, right? Padarat went. And then he come out to say, well, you know, the Whitehall is not fit for occupation by Madam Prime Minister. So we will need to find other accommodation for her. What other accommodation is there? So another building that we have to rent? Who are we renting it from? So she says in the meantime, she will work from wherever is convenient. What does convenient mean? If you feel to get up 10 o'clock today, you feel to leave the house, you're feeling too good. You're attending some function the night before and you probably had one too many. You wake up with a little hangover, so I'm feeling to go nowhere today and I'm working from home. Is that what convenient means? We're just asking the question, Mrs. Pasabis. The country wants to know. So we've already heard they intend to dip into the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. We've already heard that they intend to borrow. Two things that their supporters cussed the last PNM government for. Oh, they're raiding the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. They're only borrowing a certain money and putting the country in debt, and debts that our children and grandchildren will have to pay. So they had issues with that. We don't want no new taxes because they only want to tax the citizens. Well, okay. So 2 out of the 3 things that you all didn't want, that you all cussed the last administration for, this administration has already indicated that they intend to do those very things. Let's see if the UNC supporters are going to complain about their party, their government, raiding the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. And I told you all that. In their first incarnation, 2010 to 2015, the only reason why they didn't go into the Heritage and Stabilization Fund was because the law prevented them from doing so. Now, the law, as you know, the Heritage and Stabilization Fund Act had to be amended and the restrictions removed during the COVID period to allow the government to be able to go into the fund to withdraw money to be able to meet the needs of the citizenry during COVID. And as a result of that, the safeguard that was there that prevented Prasad Bisesa and her minions from raiding the fund between 2010 and 2015 no longer exists. So they now have free reign to go in and take out what they want, save and except for the part of the law that requires a minimum that the balance cannot fall below $1 billion US. The last figure we got was that it was just over 6 billion. So they have come in and they have met the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, the balance higher than what they left it at in 2015. All right, so let's see where that goes. Because I mean, there's only so much they could take out. And now they're talking about how many debts were left over and so on, but the government kept telling you all the money was not there. It is not that we didn't want to pay public servants more. We did not have the money so to do. The finances simply were not there to pay more. And if you come and you pay the 10% that you promised because you promised that, and not wanting the labor front to turn on you, you come in to now say, we will find the money to pay you your 10%. Understand, you pay the 10%. You have the back pay to pay for that 10%. And that 10% is only for a particular period. When the next negotiating period comes around, at what rate you're going to start at? Another 10%? Or you're going to go below 10 and say, well, we don't have the money. You have encouraged public servants, you, the UNC, you, Prasad Bisesa, you, Ansel Roger, you, Mr. Minister of Labor, Mr. Batiste, you all have now cultured public servants to the mindset that anything less than 10 is unacceptable. So going forward, over the course of the next 5 years, or whatever negotiation periods comes up, you have established a base of nothing less than 10. Nothing less than 10. Right? So you have to pay 10 plus 10% back pay, whatever that works out to. And then for future negotiations, you have to start at 10. Where are you getting that money from? I take note. I will take note of what the balance in the exchequer account is this time. So we will see where it goes to over the course of the next 5 years, because, you know, for the next 5 years, the UNC supporters don't know nothing called, don't know anything about a document called the Auditor General's report, right? They're not interested in that. Not, all of a sudden, their minds have been erased of this thing called the Auditor General's report. So they want to hear nothing about that for the next 5 years, which is where we will see the progression in the increase in the debt or the overdraft on the exchequer account, just as 2010 to 2015. So I will be monitoring that as Member of Parliament to remind them. And so we see the rollout of all of the populist strategies. So they intend to remove the demerit system because people were complaining about that. But I understand that TV6 would have run on their People Meter poll the other night. They would have run a poll on that, and the results, as I understand it, I think it was 14% of the respondents said they support the removal of the demerit system, and 86% said they don't support it. But it seems the government is hell-bent on going in the direction of the 14% and not the majority. And they were big on consultation before, you know, for the last 10 years. All we hear is consultation, consultation. Where is the consultation on that? Who did you consult? So go ahead and remove it. And let's go back to the old system as they love to promise, right? So a man get a ticket, paying that, he chuck it in the glove compartment and he forget about it. And then he get a next ticket, me paying that, chuck it in the glove compartment, he ain't paying that. And he goes about his lawlessness. Until one day, one of the members of the 14% from that poll who supported that, somebody run into your car and you realize they have no valid insurance, the driver's license expired, pressure for you. And they're driving a whole put, but mash up your car. You now have to go and fight up with the insurance company to get your car fixed. And you're vexed when it is the insurance company give you a settlement that you don't like. Who are you going and blame for that? Are you blaming Rowley? You're blaming Stuart Chung? You want to blame the insurance company? No. Blame the Prime Minister and the government who thinks it's a good idea because that promise resonated with some people and they get some votes because of that. And as a result of that, they come and decide anything the population don't like, we doing away with. Because that making sense, right? We want to be first world, but doing away with the first world methods, the first world strategies, the first world system and ways of doing things. So we could go back to our 19th century way of doing things, right? And our 20th century way of doing things. And that making sense to them. So don't complain when somebody run into your car and they have no valid insurance, and so therefore you have no recourse. So you are to fight up with your insurance company. You go and do that. Don't complain. Remember, when that happens, yellow is the code. Go and tell the insurance company yellow is the code. Yeah, you do that. They decide they're going to scrap the revenue authority. It makes sense to have all of the country's revenue collection agencies under one umbrella. One umbrella. Instead, you have BIR by so, and customs by so, and the warden office by so, a set of different things. So if you have 2 or 3 different transactions that requires you to go to a different entity, you had to go to one, and when you finish there, you have to go to the next one, and then go to the next one, when all of your transactions should be able to be done under one roof, one stop. But again, ask them, what is the sense in removing? Why are we removing the revenue authority? I am certain if they were to walk out on the street and ask the average citizen, just walk up to anybody and ask them, so you know what the revenue authority is about? 9 out of 10 wouldn't be able to tell you. So when they come and tell you they're removing that, that is for the benefit of whom? Not for the people, the average citizen. Certainly not. It's the people behind the scenes who they know engaging in tax evasion, tax fraud, and they are talking about they want to strengthen the BIR. What are you going to do to strengthen the BIR? What is BIR doing now that they weren't doing before that you feel you need, that you could improve on? What? When the same Brent Thomas that they were defending, Mr. Thomas, who was brought to Barbados, where I am now, and then they claim he was kidnapped and the like, and we would have read in the newspaper subsequently, an employee of the Board of Inland Revenue would have been fired and charged for falsifying tax clearance certificates for the very same Mr. Thomas. How are you going to fix them thing? So when the financier is telling them, hey, go fix that, we know the bubble that running and how we benefit from that. And if you come with the revenue authority, that could put a dent in our pockets. So leave it so. Leave it so. Get rid of that revenue authority. Everywhere else has revenue authorities. Even in Barbados here, they have a revenue authority. Guyana has a revenue authority. We do not. And for the next 5 years, we will not. They went all the way to the Privy Council, and the Privy Council said, found in favor of what the minister was saying. We got clearance for the revenue authority. And just like that, because some people chose to play fast and loose with their vote, the revenue authority is on its way out. So we continue to engage, because they say they're going to strengthen and fix. No details of how they're going to strengthen and fix. They're not going to strengthen and fix anything. Nothing. They will talk that talk and then come with a whole set of other distractions. And before you know it, the general population forget about that. Revenue authority gone. And they say they're going to strengthen BIR. We forget all about that. Nobody asking no question. Kapo Akash get backside buff up from Kamla. Yeah? He used to love to go and play jamming Dr. Rowley. And they, oh, Rowley rough, and look how Rowley talking to the media, and look how everything, and Rowley too disrespectful, and he's a pit bull. But the same political leader put a good buffing on Akash. They didn't say she's a pit bull. They didn't say she rough and she harsh and she buff up Akash. No, Akash looked for that. He looked for that. The hypocrisy of that party. Yeah, he looked for that. Really? You man ask a valid question. You all up in arms. You're not supporting the increase in the salaries and so on. Fine, no problem. Okay. The PNM took the gamble. It cost us one of the things that cost us the election. Let me just get this here. So we made the tough decision. Previous administration made the tough decision. And we paid the price. And the UNC benefits from it. No commitment from Prasad Bissessa that she would mandate her ministers this time to make a contribution to the Children's Life Fund, as she would have done in her first term when they established the Children's Life Fund. And then she's saying, well, did you ask the previous administration for the last 10 years, did you ask them? The previous administration didn't create the Life Fund, and they made no commitment to contribute anything to the Children's Life Fund. Dr. Rowley would have implored and admonished his ministers to give a percentage of their salary, I believe it was 5%, to a charity of their choice. But the Children's Life Fund was her baby. She loved that all. Everything is the Children's Life Fund and the Children's Life Fund. And no commitments this time to anybody with an even higher salary. No commitment. Right. She then speaks about she's going to put a cap on how much parliamentarians can get in terms of exemptions with respect to purchase of a vehicle. And she says all she has is a little Prado. She hear people bought Maybach the last time, Mercedes-Benz Maybach. And what is that? And she just has a little Prado. So maybe she's going to put the cap at that, at the Prado. So you make a unilateral decision as the Prime Minister that you are going to establish a cap on how much exemptions members of Parliament could get for the purchase of a vehicle based on your vehicle preference. Really? So Prado is your vehicle of choice. You don't have vehicles cheaper than Prado. Why didn't say you're gonna cap it at the price of a Kia Sorento? Why didn't cap it at something at around with a price of 400,000 instead of your Prado? What's the price of a Prado? But you'll cap it at that because you know a lot of them in that party love Prados. Most of them drive in Prado, so that is the benchmark. The vehicle that they like, that is what she's gonna put the cap on. Again, no consultation. I wonder how David Lee feels about that, because Mr. Lee has a preference for Mercedes-Benz, may not be a Maybach, but he has a preference for G-Wagon. So while they're criticizing Rohan Sinanan for having a taste for Maybach, no criticism for David Lee, who wanted the G-Wagon that cost $2.3 million. I didn't tell David Lee that. You never hear about the G-Wagon, but you hear about Maybach. So again, this is what we can expect. We hear Dragon dead. Dead. Well, no Dragon. Well, Dragon dead for the next 5 years. Right? And hopefully in the next 5 years, 3 months, 4 months, and how many ever days, depending on when they choose to call the parliament, good sense will prevail. And all of those folks who chose not to come out and vote for the PNM, hopefully in 2030, you all will make the right decision. Of course, there will be circumstances at that time, more than likely, which would help to inform your decision, because Mrs. Posabi-Sese is quite unlikely to be able to serve another term. Right? So this quite likely would be her last hurrah in politics. Because at 78, we are seeing signs, or we've been seeing signs of deterioration in her health, and that is not going to improve over the course of the next 5 years. So depending on who they put at the helm after the big cat fight that's going to take place, because we see Padarath is now trying to establish himself, as an authority and everything, and he is the prime minister's right hand, left foot, everything, right? So he would probably have an interest in succeeding her, but then we have people like Rudal Munilal who will not stand for that, and others who have similar ambitions. So we will see how that fight will develop over the course of the next 5 years. Okay? But the economists are saying that in the first instance, there needs to be a reduction in expenditure. We cannot go back to the budgets of $63 and $65 billion that we became accustomed to between 2010 to 2015, because we simply do not have the money to afford that. Between 2010 to 2015, they were experiencing oil prices in excess of $100 per barrel. Right now, I think oil prices are about $69 or $70 per barrel thereabouts, and our production is also down. So this talk we're hearing about gas from Grenada, gas from Suriname, gas from Guyana, where that came from? For the last 5 years, all you're having Monday Night Forum, you're talking about your national economic transformation plan and what are the plans you have to revive the economy. Nowhere in your national economic transformation plan was there any mention of any gas from Grenada, gas from Guyana, gas from Suriname. In fact, no mention of that was made on the platform during their campaign. None. But all of a sudden, we hear about the Minister of Energy would be instructed to meet with the government of Grenada and the government of Guyana and the government of Suriname with a view to exploring natural gas fields in these territories. Well, I see in today's Guardian, the Vice President of Guyana has responded, Mr. Barra Jagdeo, and he has indicated, we have no gas for anyone. We have gas for no one. So if it is Trinidad and Tobago planning hitching their wagon and our gas, forget that. No, of course, we know that in part came from a recent statement by Mr. Jagdeo of the possibility of Guyana sending gas to Trinidad for the utilization of our facilities here for the refining process. But it is not them selling gas to us or any sort of arrangement where similar to what we would have had with Venezuela, where we would have developed the gas and there would have been a profit-sharing arrangement and so on. That is not happening. So I don't know where they're going to get the gas from. But all we keep hearing, don't worry. Up to now, a whole week, still waiting. Mr. Tanku is yet to tell us the state of the treasury. Whole week and more. They made it seem as if that was so simple. No talk about the 3.6 billion or the 3.3 billion or the 2.6 billion that they say was stolen. Should have been very easy. I would have thought that at least by Wednesday, one of them could have come and tell us, yes, look, we have the evidence here. Remember, we tell all the thief 2.6 billion. Well, look at here, look the evidence. Where is it? 1 week later, that's not a priority. And all of a sudden, the supporters gone quiet on that. By now, they should have called a press conference with the Auditor General so she could have come and give the details and tell us how the money was stolen. That hasn't happened. So rest assured, get them about another week or two, and that will die a natural death. Because when the supporters realize, but wait, if by now we ain't hear nothing about that, maybe no money was stolen. But let us not raise the ants' nest. Let us not give the PNM supporters something to beat us with. Because we chose to practice stupidity in the last year or so. So let me hush we mouth on that. No more talk about any missing 2.6 billion. Going to avoid that at all costs. So wait for it. It come in. It come in. So all of these things that I'm hearing, the prime, having to call this lady Prime Minister, Lord Father. But again, let me just mention, right? So I keep hearing people talking about, oh, the PNM get a backside wash and was a blowout and was a landslide. There was no landslide. When I added up the total votes by which we lost in the 9 constituencies that we seeded, the PNM lost in total, those 9 constituencies, we lost by 15,080 votes. 15,080 votes across those 9 constituencies. So the total final count, I think the EBC came up with was we got about 224,000 and some votes thereabout. So we could have won this election with 240,000 votes to the UNC's 350-something thousand votes, which comprises the UNC, the PEP, and whoever else, right? So they could have won the popular vote by over 110, almost 120,000. And all we needed was 15,000 PNM supporters out of the 102,000 who voted for us in 2020 to just come out and cast the ballot. All you know is you're vexed with the government, you're disappointed with the PNM for whatever reason. We get that. All you know is, I put your X by the balize. 15,080 of you all. That's all we required. So with all this talk we were hearing for the last year and some about how the country in a mess, PNM mash up the country, the PNM mash up the economy, the state of crime is the worst, and Trinidad and Tobago have gone to the pits. They did not get the massive turnout. That message did not resonate. The lowest voter turnout since 1976. Imagine that, the lowest voter turnout in almost 50 years. So where were all these people who were upset with the government? Where were they? When we look at when I did the comparative in terms of 2020 election results and 2025, Kamala Persad-Bissessar in her own constituency just got about an additional 400 and something votes. She has about 28,000 eligible voters in her constituency. And she was only able to get less than 14,000 of them, less than 50% of them to come out and vote for her. So what happened? And the PNM got just under 3,000. So that is what, about 17,000 votes thereabout. So the next 11,000 people, they didn't think that the country was the pits. They didn't buy into the story that the economy mash up and the crime situation and all of these things. They chose to stay home. I don't think that 11,000 persons were PNM supporters. In Superior, pretty sure they weren't. So if she wasn't even able to convince a significant increase in the number of UNC supporters to come out and vote for her, what does that say? That is more of an indictment on her than it is on the PNM. Right? With all the gloom and doom that they have been spreading for the last few years, you could not get at least 3,000-4,000 more UNC supporters in your constituency to come out and vote for you. They just didn't care. They chose not to vote. And we saw that replicated across several constituencies. In some constituencies, they get a little buffer, a little increase. In Tunapuna, I don't know what the hell went on there. But when we look at the 9 constituencies that the PNM lost by 15,080 votes, that's all we needed, eh? Because we only needed 8 seats to remain in government, because 21 seats would have allowed us to remain in government. So if we take out St. Joseph from the equation, which is where we had the largest margin of loss, just over 3,000 votes or so, or a little less than that, we only needed about 11,800 votes to win this election. 11,834 votes or so would have given us 8 constituencies. 21, because we could have afforded to lose 1 and still remain in government. So even though they're talking about 100 and something thousand people who vote for the PNM in 2020 didn't come out, we didn't need all of that. We just needed 11,834 across 8 constituencies. Yeah, I got the virus from some of my colleagues here, so I have my cough back. 11,834 people. I know the tough part about that is we had it in every one of those constituencies that we lost. We had this PNM support to be able to win. The people just did not come out. For one reason or another, they did not come out. And I could tell you a lot of them today regretting the decision of having not come out and voted. But I told you all, your vote is non-refundable. So Prasad Bisesa asked the population, she asked the PNM supporters in particular at one of her meetings to join the coalition of interests. The PNM doesn't care about you. The PNM has abandoned you and all of that. So come join with us and we will fix, because the PNM constituencies have the most amount of crime and the most amount of poverty and are most underdeveloped and all of that, she told you. Well, the PNM supporters, they heeded her call, just not in the way that she wanted. Because rather than give their votes to her for her to win, they decided to withhold their votes from us. And so all this talk about rebuilding and rebuilding and rebuilding. We don't need to rebuild. There's nothing wrong with the PNM. What we need to do is to go back out and talk to our people and find out why they didn't support us. What was the issue? And mistakes were made. And we need to apologize to the people. But I mean, I'm listening to what is happening, and some people coming out now and who's saying that they weren't consulted, and with respect to the strategy and all of that, and blame is being thrown here, there, and everywhere. This is not the time for that. There is no time for recrimination and all of that. The PNM needs to show a united front. And it is unfortunate that that is coming from the most senior members of the party, and we, the junior members of parliament, find ourselves caught up in this. Right? We find ourselves caught up in this when we played no hand in it. So, but we are now part of the team that is responsible for going out there and trying to fix the problem. It shouldn't be that difficult, because as I said, for those who were upset with the party, those who were disappointed with the party for whatever reason, I decided they're not going to vote. Whatever their reasons were, I think they have now been satisfied. So who was vexed with Dr. Rowley because they didn't like the way that Stuart Young became Prime Minister? Dr. Rowley is gone and Stuart Young is no longer the Prime Minister. So it doesn't make sense to continue to punish the party, because if that was your angst, it no longer exists. For those who are upset about the 4% thing and who bought in, because I keep hearing people repeating 47% and 47%. The only person who it was said received a 47% increase was Dr. Rowley. And again, the UNC did an excellent job of selling that to the electorate. That is the only thing. You only hear 47%. 47%. No government minister got a 47% increase. But they focused on Dr. Rowley. Rowley gave big pay. Rowley gave big back pay. Rowley going home with a big salary and a big pension. And he often telling public servants tighten their belt, telling the country tighten their belt, and he gone with a big pension, and people had to fight up with 4%. You all heard me talk about the numerous occasions about the increase in personal allowance and how that constituted a pay raise. And the so-called men and women of letters who should have been speaking about that and highlighting that didn't do it. Didn't do it. But again, our messaging left much to be desired. And I think the biggest mistake that the PNM made was in believing that the population cares about corruption. They don't. Because if they cared about corruption, there is no way Kamla Persad-Bissessar would be Prime Minister today. So they don't care about corruption. So it makes no sense for me to come here to talk about that and to remind people about the corruption that took place. Even if corruption takes place over the next 5 years, what is the point of me coming here to tell you about that when it is clear, a lot of people couldn't care less. So long as they fix and they get what they want, government ministers could thief as much as they want, they don't care. So all these people who vex our thing, they thief and people ain't get locked up. Why are you complaining? You know the things that was done before, but you still came back, and who voted for them and who chose not to vote gave them the opportunity now to come back and do it a second time. So don't complain. And don't expect me to come here when it is you see reports about this one thief and that one thief to come and talk about it. I'm not doing that. Because you all didn't care about it. You don't care about corruption. So fine. Stop complaining about politicians who thieving. Because if you're willing to give them another chance to come and do it again, it says you are an upholder. So when we look at some of the, I mean, a lot of these persons who got ministerial positions and who got positions of parliamentary secretary and minister in the ministry of was totally unnecessary. But they beat up and tell you, Kamala Persad-Bissessar herself is telling you she's concerned, her words, she's concerned about the treasury in respect of Stuart Chung becoming prime minister even for a day, because that means that for the rest of his life, he's going to receive $87,000 a month. And that works out to over $1 million a year. And she's concerned the impact that $1 million a year is going to have on the treasury. So concerned was she that she came and gave you another large cabinet, largest in the country's history. So you have, when we calculated how many of these extra ministers who will be taking home $53,000 a month. So if we say by 10 more than the Rowley administration, that's an additional $530,000 a month that they will be getting as a minister. But they will also be paid, those who she brought through the Senate, they will also be receiving a salary as a senator, which might work out another $20-something thousand. So let's say 10 by $75,000 a month. Okay? $750,000 a month. Multiplied by 12. She was concerned about $1 million. But her cabinet is going to cost the population anywhere between an additional $10 to $12 million more for the year than Rowley's cabinet cost you because of its size. But you know, under that, I keep telling you all that party, less is more and more is less. So Stuart Chung being paid $87,000 a month, what she said about $1 million a year, that is more than the extra $10 to $12 million that is going to cost you a year for all of these unnecessary ministers who have no work to do. Nicholas Morris, only since for the whole week that he has been minister, well, parliamentary secretary in the ministry of wherever, and minister in the office of the prime, and parliamentary secretary in the office of the prime minister, as the case may be. All he has been doing for the last week, walking around, he is Barry Padarat's cameraman. Right? He's Padarat cameraman. And Padarat, come, Nicholas, you need to walk a little faster. That's what you, taxpayer, paying Nicholas Morris to do, to take out his cell phone and follow Barry all around the place, to go to the Prime Minister's residence and take video, to play tit for tat on social media to show you this ain't working, and look, that ain't working, and look at the state of the pool, and look at this, and look at that. That's what, for the last week, that's all they've been doing. So apparently, the same Padarat who was complaining for how many years about people ain't getting water, and people have problems with lights, and all of the different public utilities issues. So apparently for the last week, nobody was struggling for water in the country. Right? Nobody has any issues with water. Nobody has any issues with electricity for the past week. So he don't have any set of work to do. So he can afford to take a whole week and run from Prime Minister's residence to the Prime Minister's office and shoot videos and take pictures to post up on Facebook to tell you about the state that the last administration left these buildings in, and why Kamala Persad-Bissessar cannot occupy them. Deja vu. 2010 to 2015, the same thing. So rest assured, I will not be surprised if Millefleur remains unoccupied for the next 5 years, and the same way that it would have fallen into a state of disrepair between 2010 to 2015, we are likely to see that again. Or if they do fix it, the amount of money that they're going to spend to fix it is going to be significant. Just as they told us the president's residence The president's house between 2010 to 2015, the budget they had to fix it was $169 million. The PNM came in and did it for $80 million less. Now we hear budget, we hear they force Miss Rock to do a video. Poor Miss Rock trying to see how she could craft her words because she don't want to say something that is not true, and less or she doesn't want to say something that could cost her her job or see her demoted or move to some other ministry, right? So you come, where have you ever seen that before? You are a minister of government. You will pull a public servant square on the veranda of the prime minister's residence and make the woman speak into a cell phone being held by another individual who is also receiving a big salary, who's supposed to be doing work in a ministry or two ministries. And poor Miss Rock there, I feeling sorry for the woman. Why would you put her in that position? You don't know what her political affiliation is. You don't know if she's a PNM. But you want to put her in a position to come and say things to support a narrative that you push in that is incorrect. So she come now and she said, well, you know, it's $5 million or whatever it is. They will tell you it might have been $5 million in 2023, but in 2025, so that 5 now turned to $10 million to fix. To fix what? Who went and pick out the furniture? Barry? What is Barry's taste in furniture? Tell us now, Barry. Are we going to import furniture, or are we going to go to one of our local distributors to get furniture to put in the Prime Minister's residence? Dr. Oli put out a video. For the first time, we've been able to see the living quarters of the Prime Minister. Yeah, in all its glory. So we've seen, you know, maybe one or two little things need to be fixed here, there, everywhere. But we will see what price tag they come back with. Don't forget, they shut down Napa for 2 years between 2010 to 2015. Told they'd have all kind of issues with Napa. Napa can't use. It's going to cost at least $100 million to fix. This administration came in and fixed it for 20 million. Not 100+ million as they told us. But they start early. They're not waiting until close to the end of the term. This time, they're bright. They start early. So they have 5 years to do it. Okay? They ain't waiting till the end of the term then to come and tell you this, hoping that they win the election. And then the Rowley administration or the whoever administration comes in next after, well, to then come and do it and show you how they inflated the prices. So let me do it early. We tell all it's 5 million. But we will hear work taking place and no further discussion unless the media asks a question. But the fact is, Prasad Bisasa does not want to come to Port of Spain every day. She doesn't. After years, almost 10 years of getting accustomed to coming to Port of Spain 2 or 3 times a week, to have to come every single day. But madam, that is why there is a house for you to live in. A house for you to live in. So now we're hearing about them having to look for alternative accommodation to house the office of the Prime Minister. So which 1% building are they going to rent this time? Because they said the building where the Prime Minister's office was between 2010 to 2015 is overcrowded because you have 2 other ministries operating from that building. So she can't go there. So let's see which 1% building they're going to rent. You could give Faris a call, Zaman Enterprises. Here now, only have any buildings available, you know, within that particular proximity. Or is she going to move the office of the Prime Minister to Central or South? Find a building in South now. Spend some rent money. Money that we don't have. But we have to find buildings for all of these new ministries, right? Ministry of Tertiary Education, the Ministry of Justice. Well, I guess the Ministry of Defense of Homeland Security will remain in what is now the Ministry of National Security. But we have to find a ministry for a building for the Ministry of Justice. We have to find a building for the Ministry of Defense. And what's somebody other new ministry? Well, the Ministry of Transport and Civil Aviation. We have to find a building for that. And what other new ministries are to come as well. So we will wait and we will see how much that's going to cost you, the taxpayer. it took me a little while to get my jaw off the ground when I heard Pasabi Sessa say, Trinidad and Tobago is a small place. So there is no need for government ministers to have state-sponsored housing. And she gave the example of Point Fortin. She said it's a 45-minute drive from Port of Spain to Point Fortin. So no need for state housing. I wish she had known that between 2010 to 2015, and it would have saved us over $6 million in helicopter rides. So for now, it seems that we may not see the helicopter, for now. But let us not forget the reason why the commute from Point Fortin to Port of Spain, according to her, is now 45 minutes, wasn't because of anything they did. It was because of what the People's National Movement did. The same PNM that they tell you did nothing for the last 10 years. Maybe they could tell us how did that commute now find itself shortened from probably close to 2 hours to now 45 minutes. How? No credit for the expansion, the 3 lanes, that north-south commute that has now significantly eased the flow of traffic. Everybody that I know who live in the south and who have reason to come to Port of Spain and commute from Port of Spain to south and back have told me that they have seen a significant improvement in that. But when it was happening, all kind of cost the government get, thing. We had to be enjoying how much hours of traffic and all this inconvenience and long this thing. But guess what? It finished and the commute is improved. The government get any love for that? No, none at all. None at all. What we get for it was licks. As I've said to the leadership of my party, we failed in telling the people what the PNM did. Since 2018, I was telling the PNM, our public relations is weak, we need to fix it. Our social media is weak, we need to fix it. Since 2018. We didn't listen. Now all of a sudden, people in the hierarchy of the party acknowledging that. All of a sudden, yes, that was one of our shortfalls because the UNC never stopped campaigning. Since 2015 with the Monday Night Forum, every Monday they having a meeting. Then it graduated to Wednesday they having a press conference. Thursday, Sunday morning they having the waste of time press conference. Spreading the lies, misinformation. And we sit down telling ourselves, nah, we good, man. The population and believe in that. Really? Well, the election results tell a different story. And it seems their messaging, their lies, and their propaganda resonated more with PNM supporters than anybody else. It didn't resonate so much with their supporters because they didn't see this significant increase in their numbers. But we saw a significant decrease in our numbers. Because when our supporters were listening to hear something different, how many times when you look on social media, and I'm seeing in posts, comments under posts from different media houses, and people asking and challenging PNM supporters, tell us 1 thing or 5 things the PNM do in the last 5 years. Name 3 things the PNM do in the last 5 years. And poor PNM supporters struggling to answer the question. So were it not for the efforts of my people like myself and Jenny and Eric and my friend Carol Mayers and others who were trying to spread the information to inform PNM people so that they could better answer. How many times I get messages in my WhatsApp messenger from people, here now, I'm in this WhatsApp chat group here, boy. I have a few UNC people and they're real ponging the PNM and they're saying this and they're saying that. You could tell me, look, one of them asked this, you could answer that? You have any information on this? And I had to be sharing information, yes, tell them this. Go in, Googling newspaper articles and sending the link for these people so that they could put it in the chat that they're in to show the UNC people they're talking nonsense. How many times I had to do that? People who listen to me here, I say, yeah, that man had the information, but let me message him privately in Messenger to see if he can help me out. And I just send in information to people. Sending information to people when that should have been out there for people to be able to answer. They should have been able to go on a PNM Facebook page or some profile, something, some social media page belonging to the party to be able to get that information to respond, but couldn't. So they have to go to the sources that they know more than likely would have it. But we should have been doing this more on a more wide scale, and we didn't do it. So when senior citizens in my constituency expressing concerns to me that they worry they're going to lose their pension because they see an ad on TV where Kamala say the PNM going to take away old people, the old age pension, and they're going to take away the senior citizens grant. And they ain't hearing anything on the radio, they're not hearing anything on the TV or anywhere from the PNM showing why that is a lie. They have no choice but to believe that it is true. And so they can't stomach voting for the UNC. So they simply withheld their vote from the PNM. When we should have been having public meetings. Nobody's saying you need to have one every Monday like the UNC, but maybe every once a fortnight or even once a month to debunk these lies and all of this misinformation that was out there. But people believed it. This 2.6 billion was never, to my mind, satisfactorily explained. We never heard what was the outcome of the meeting between the Auditor General and the Central Bank with respect to the electronic check clearing system. Never heard about it. So in the absence of a definitive conclusion, that stayed out there. And we didn't treat with it. And we didn't understand how much that resonated with people. Because when they sit down in the bar or they sit down by a line by somebody's house and they're talking, this is what they were talking about. And PNM people having a difficult time in explaining what went on there. Because we, the party, did not provide them with the information to go out there and defend the party. So we will spend the next 5 years trying to defend what we shouldn't have had to. And I mean, I saw this morning where they revoked the appointment of the head of the SSA. So I see some people saying, like they want to bring back Rishmi. But that's what it is that they are doing, right? And their supporters applauding that. Yeah, get rid of them. Get rid of them, all them PNM plant and them, all them PNM agents, get rid of them. And bring in the UNC supporters, bring in UNC people. But when Coleman Bud fired Jawala Rambaran from the central bank, these same hypocrites who endorsing the removal of the head of the SSA and talking nonsense about, yeah, get rid of them PNM agents and them who want to come and try and obstruct government policy. Where were you? You all had everything to say. Oh, Imbut bias, and they fire Jawala, and this and that and the other, and what they do demand that for. And yes, I hope he take them to court and he get millions of dollars. So you're not hoping that the former head of the SSA, that he takes this UNC government to court too? On what basis was he fired? On what basis was he fired? So all of a sudden, we see the Attorney General then talking about Jawala, and the government will make a decision if they're going to settle and make the payment or if they're going to continue to pursue the matter. Really? Of all the issues that you all have to deal with, that is a priority? In your first week? In your first week? Who wants to make the rich richer? So let's just capitulate. And let's give Jawala the money that they say. Give him the $5 million or how much ever, and whatever else he's asking for. Yeah? Imagine that is a priority for them in their first week. John Jeremy gone inside it. So many issues to deal with. But that, for some reason, stood out for you. That was in neon lights. And after just a week or so in office, that is one of the things that you want to give priority to. Right? No problem. So we will see where that goes. And then we will see if the civil suit against Rudal Munilal and the contractors, what is going to happen there. And then we will see with respect to this matter involving Steve Ferguson, whether or not they're going to pursue that matter so that we could get the $1 billion in restitution, or if they're going to allow that to fall by the wayside as well. We will wait and see. But rest assured, the UNC supporters, they have no problems if that happens. No problems. It was a sin, cardinal sin, to fire Jawala Rambaran, but it's okay to now remove the head of the SSA. And the supporters coming out and talking about, yeah, but that is normal. When government change, that's what is normally happen. Well, then you all should have accepted the firing of Jawala Rambaran, the man who didn't know for 4 consecutive quarters of negative growth that we were in a recession while the PP was in office. But as soon as they lost, all of a sudden, he woke up one morning and he had an epiphany. But wait. 2, 3, 4. But we're in recession. Let me call a press conference to make that announcement. In the same way, when they came in 20, when the PNM came in and the government told the population, the treasury was empty. Fumes. Remember they said the government lied. It had money in the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. Well, it had more money in the Heritage and Stabilization Fund today than there was when they demitted office on September 7, 2015. They say, oh, we left how much billions of dollars in the foreign reserves. Well, it had over $5 billion in the foreign reserves. And those were the two sources of money that Prasad Bisesa said she left in order to argue a case that the PNM lied when they said the treasury was empty. So we have more money in the HSF now than they left in 2015, and we have money in the foreign reserves. So if they come in now to say the treasury empty, based on their logic, we could tell them you're damn lie. Because the two sources that you all identified as having left money in 2015 still have money in it. And one of them have more money than you all had left. So don't come now to tell us the treasury empty when it is that you all said you did not leave an empty treasury because you left money in these two sources. Rock so with that. That's when you want to play smart with foolishness. Let's come back to haunt you now. So to the UNC supporters, don't come and talk dotish about the treasury empty and they leave Fumes and the PNM leave the treasury bankrupt. Right? There's money in those two sources. And if you all accepted Kamala Prasad's Bisesa's explanation in 2015, she didn't leave the treasury empty because it had money there, it still have money there. So the treasury ain't empty. Pick your poison. Right? So miss us with that BS summer, please. Rock so with that rubbish. But again, this is the nonsense that we have to hear. And it's only been a week. And as I said earlier, the countdown hasn't started yet. The clock hasn't started yet. So they still have a full 5 years and how much ever, as long as they refuse to convene Parliament. Only when we have the convening of Parliament and the 41 of us are sworn in as members of Parliament of the lower house, does the countdown clock start to the next general election. So all who starting to count, well, 1 week gone. I know 1 week gone, my friend. 2 weeks gone. Tomorrow will make it 2 weeks since the election. And no word yet when Parliament is going to convene. So for each day that passes, that's just a freebie that they get. Yeah, our 5 years, 3 months, and 14 days of torture is yet to begin. But we've already seen shades of what we can expect. Jobs for the boys. I heard David Lee say that he was overwhelmed with requests for housing. Overwhelmed with requests from whom? From whom? He said from the moment he was appointed minister, he's been overwhelmed with requests. Can't be from PNM people, because we know you don't like PNM people. So where did all of these requests come from? And that all of these requests that he's received exceeds the availability of housing. Really? So you get tens of thousands of requests for housing from who? The people, the UNC supporters that you all promised it to? The people who you met on the campaign trail and who tell you, I want a house, I need a house. And they say, yeah, don't worry, when we get in, you'll get a house. And they say, give me your number now. And you give them your number. And you win. And now you are the Minister of Housing. And they remember you and your colleagues promised them house when you were walking. And they're happy now with GT. Don't complain. I'm pretty sure I ain't on PNM. Because PNM people wasn't entertaining all. They were like saving except for the few that they probably were successful in buying out. Right? But the rest of them, not interested. So we know what we can expect. I warned the PNM people and I said, those of you who live in the marginal seats, the UNC is going to come, you allow them to get into office, they will build housing in the marginal seats, which PNM traditionally wins, and plant their people there to reduce the margin or to wipe out the margin altogether to make it more difficult for the PNM to get back into office. I told you all that. Well, you may listen. You still decide me voting. Well, all right. So when we get 5 years of abuse, don't complain if we end up with another 5. Prepare yourself. So all waiting for the 10%. As I see, they say carefully, you end up with back pain instead of back pay. Just careful with that, because we don't know where the money coming from. Prasad Bisesa has declared the Dragon gas dead. She's not interested in speaking to Mr. Maduro on any front. But David Lee said they will talk to the US authorities and they will see what they could do and whatnot. You could have what conversation with the US authorities. If you don't talk to Maduro, it have no dragon gas. And the gas is there. The infrastructure is there. We were just a year away from gas starting to flow. And now we went from 1 year to Lord knows how many years. I can't even say 5. I'd love to say 5, but I can't even say 5. Right? So, as long as they're in office, Dragon dead. Return there because, as I said, it's in ICU. It's going to be in a coma for at least the next 5 years. But this is where we are at. This is where we are at. Let's see, yeah? Let me just get this here. So, look at this. So all of the things that they plan to remove, and remove this and remove that. Let me say, you see this talk Pasad Bisasa came with, and you see this is the thing that's upset me. Eh? Come with your details, come with your facts. Don't come and just throw things out there, and it's the last time we're going to hear about it. This nonsense about government officials getting state-sponsored housing. From where? Mr. Imbert is also in Barbados. He and I were on the same flight when we came over on Thursday. And we had a brief chat in the airport. And so in the chat that we are in, he's asking, so who are these government officials that have state-sponsored housing? He said, because for the entire time I was minister, I wasn't aware of that. So I mean, I could have got a state-sponsored house and nobody told me this. None of the former MPs, former ministers who won their seats have any idea or information about any senior government officials having any state-sponsored housing other than the former prime minister, right? And the president. So they don't know nothing about that. The only other persons who were entitled to state-sponsored housing were the 2 members of parliament from Tobago, right? And that is part of their, well, the Salaries Review Commission as part of their remuneration is for housing to be provided for them. And in the absence of them being able to be provided with state-sponsored housing, they receive a housing allowance to pay for accommodation for the time that they are in Trinidad. So this thing about she will come back with more information about that later because she has requested a report and further information. How hard is that? So you just come at a press conference and say, talk about people getting state-sponsored housing, and you have no details about how many, who, what positions, and you come and you say, just like the dossier she promised us some years ago, with 150 and with a list of 150 buildings that the 1% own, and she will come back at another time and give us the information. Never come back. No information. But all of this such a thing that they're putting out there, right, to deflect from the nonsense that they started with, that is going to end up costing you, the taxpayer, a lot of money. Waste of time. All of these ministries, imagine this country was governed for the last 10 years without all of these set of ministers and ministries. When you look at the makeup of the cabinet of the United States of America, where you have a population of over 300 million people, even their cabinet is not as big as ours. Their cabinet is not as big as ours. Donald Trump added one new ministry or one new department, which was DOGE, right? The Department of Government Efficiency. And he's now seeking to remove other departments like the Department of Education and so on. So at least it's still kept at a certain level. But we, with a population of 100 and something, but not even what am I saying, with just over 1 million persons, 1.4 million people, we need a cabinet of 37 persons to govern. And all of these persons entitled to big salaries, all of these persons entitled to perks of buying vehicles every 2 years and getting all of these exemptions and the like, at the expense of who? But when we tally the extra money that is being spent for all of these additional ministers, where is the UNC? Where are the UNC supporters who used to be coming out and telling you under the PNM all the other things that money could have been spent on? If the government spent 100,000 on something, they come to tell you, oh, but they could have spent that money on this and could have spent that money on that. Where are they today? They've gone silent. They are willing to condone any amount of expenditure coming from Kamla Prasad Bisesa because they got what they wanted. Their leader is in power. Half of them are benefiting nothing personally. But they're just happy that she is there and the PNM is not. And I'm not even motivated to look at Facebook anymore. When I see the amount of nonsense that their supporters are condoning, the nonsense that they're trying to defend, that is okay if a person be to work from home and only talking about work from home policy and all of that. But talk to Dominic Smith, he's the Minister of Public Administration. The last administration had finalized a work from home policy. What is going on with that? If she could do it, well, then public servants could do it as well. Ease us up on the traffic. So all of these things that they're promising that they're going to come and do and what they will do. And Leroy Batista as Minister of Labour, she didn't learn the first time from putting Errol McLeod. What came of that? What came of that? So you come with Leroy Batista now. So he sell out the PSA so that he could get a big work. And I verily believe he will end up just like Errol McLeod, sit down in Parliament for 5 years and say absolutely nothing. Like a stump on a log. When you're rocking back to forth, and hoping that when Pasad Bisasa leave the country, that you'll get a blight act. You get a Kobo sweat to drive in where we don't have PM1 anymore. To drive in PDM1 or to drive around, with the flashing blue lights and the like. Still waiting up to now a whole week later, and Munilal hasn't come out with any scandals to talk about. None? A whole week, boy? Going on with you, Munilal? That's not like you. We know you're very good at concocting and manufacturing scandals, so a whole week and nothing yet? Or we wait to see? Other than to come and tell us that the PNM left fumes in the treasury. Now, if it's fumes, they have no money to spend. And they must now navigate how do you come to the public servants and tell them, well, we can't pay because. And we saw it. The diverse families. When the government was telling them, listen, it is not that we don't want to assist. Dr. Rowley met with the family of the 4 divers, and he told them there are certain legal challenges, legal issues that need to be overcome first. Because remember, these companies have insurance, and they would first be dealing with the insurance. So we can't just jump out of ourselves and say we're going to give you money, and then what in doing that we set a precedent that could absolve these insurance companies from having to pay. When Stuart Chung became Prime Minister and he took a decision to give $1 million to each to the families of each of the divers, he spoke about that. He told you, he said, listen, this does not prevent the families from still approaching the court and seeking legal redress to get more money. But I am just tired of this back and forth wrangling between the insurance companies as to who should pay and how much they should pay LMCS lawyers and Paria lawyers and LMCS insurers and Paria insurers and all of that back and forth. And in the meantime, the family is enduring some level of discomfort. So we will make this ex gratia payment. This is not any admission of liability. So on. Besides this, as a jump out, you said when they win, they're going to compensate the families. Now you come to say, well, we can't pay the families right now because we have some legal hurdles to overcome. So when Rowley said it, when Stuart Chung said it, they were lying, right? But she come and say it, and all of a sudden now the UNC accepting that. All who say they voted for the UNC because you see that situation. My own colleague who I told you all about, who I used to be on radio with, who come in to tell me nonsense. The deal that the straw that broke the camel's back for him was those divers and how much money was spent on the commission of inquiry, and the families didn't get a cent. And that was his motivating factor for supporting and promoting the UNC. They come now to tell you the same thing that Rowley tell you, the same thing that Stuart Chung tell you. What are you going to say now? You're going to take back the straw? Or you're going to withdraw your support for the UNC? Because the same thing that you were told, there were legal issues that had to be treated with before a payment is made. Now Pasad Bisasa come and hit all the same thing. That's okay. It was just like 2010. You all remember when the European Union had given some money to the government of Trinidad and Tobago for the cane farmers. And that money was supposed to be used to provide training and stuff and invest or to be put into, let me just sort this out here, to develop retooling programs and so on to assist the farmers to get back on their feet. And the PNM told the farmers, listen, stipulation with the EU, we cannot give you all this money as, in checks. So just tell you, come and collect a check so that you could go and buy fridge and stove and car and whatever you want. It's specific. This money is not to be used in that way. What it is to be used for is for the government to be able to reskill and retool and retrain you all so that you would be able now to move away from your old career into new endeavors. The UNC, come and tell them, they're lying. They lie. You could get the money in cash. The EU never say that. They just don't want to give all of the money. Vasan Bharat was among those. And as soon as they win, and he became the minister of agriculture, what do? Come and tell the same Caroni workers, well, we can't give you all the money in cash. Because based on the stipulations of the EU, really and truly, that money is supposed to be invested to help you all to retool, to be able to move away from your old career. When the PNM said it, same people come and tell the farmers, the PNM lie. Manning and them lie. They just don't want to give all the money, but put us in office and we will give all the money. Get into office. You see, what Manning and them was really saying was true. It was really true. But, so we can't give all the money. Vote done cast, they in office. Couldn't care less. They come with the same thing now. Telling all you, can't give the people no big set of money because there are legal hurdles to cross. The UNC make that a campaign issue. Right? You had Vanessa Kusi, whose husband was one of the men who died. She sat down in the audience and she cried, crocodile tears, oh God, we suffering. I have money to buy food and to send my child to school. You're a counselor, so you're getting paid. Right? Big chairs. And the media was there to catch a picture of her and put it front page. Look at that. Look at the grief on this woman's face. This wicked and evil PNM. They wouldn't compensate the families. Look at the woman. Look how she's struggling. And people see that and they're reading this story and watching that picture and she wiping she. She get the money? When she get the money? Hey, Kamla? How long these hurdles are going to take to cross? Tell us now. Please. The same timeline that the PNM was telling you all? The same thing the PNM was telling you all why they couldn't pay? Is it the same issues? Or is it new ones? Help us out now. But of course, we know you have the forbearance at the UNC. So if you take 2 years, 3 years to pay the families, it's okay. That's all right. We know you mean well and you promise them and you will deliver on your promise. But the wicked and evil PNM didn't want to give them no money. They rather spend a set of millions of dollars on the commission of inquiry. When Dr. Rowley said he wanted no commission of inquiry. The same Dr. Rowley who said we were going to put together a 3-man commission, a 3-man inquiry team to go of experts to go take a look at what it has happened and deliver a report. It wasn't going to cost the country $15 million. Same UNC supporters who say, no, we are with that. They go hire 3 PNM people to come and give a bogus report and exonerate Paria. We don't want that. We want a commission of inquiry. They get a commission of inquiry. It costs millions of dollars and they vex. They know how much the lawyers get and the family ain't get nothing. All of these are things that we should have been explaining better to the population, but we didn't. And so we find ourselves in the situation that we are in today. So when they come to tell the public servants, we have money right now to give all 10 now. A whole 5, and let me see what we could do in the next year now, or in the next 2 years now, and see if we could come back and give you another 5 or give you the 10. We can't do it now, but we're not saying we're not going to give you it. But it's just we don't have the money to do it now. So maybe in a year or 2, we'll come back and the next negotiating period, we'll give you the 10. Don't complain. Don't say you want back your vote. Yellow is the code. Go in the grocery and say yellow is the code. Go in the bank and say yellow is the code. And everything will be all right. Yellow is the code. Ministry of Youth Development and National Service, gone. You had a government that dedicated an entire ministry to young people, to the youth up to age 35. You had an entire ministry that was dedicated to young people to help them to move away from being employees to becoming employers, self-employed, writing their own paycheck at the end of the month, establishing a business where they would be able to assist their colleagues and their friends who live in their own community so that they could be mentors. You had a whole ministry that was dedicated to creating 1,000 young entrepreneurs between the ages of 18 to 35 by providing them with grants and training in business. I told you all about the young man that I met who didn't want to shake my hand. He's supporting UNC, talking about the yellow is the code. When I extended my hand to shake, he turned his back and walked off on me. I don't want to shake your hand. It's UNC all the way, boy. And then you come back after somebody talk to you and say, here, Wana, when you win, all I want is a little work. Because right now, I'm in the PIPE program with the Ministry of Youth Development. And when I finish, I just want you to help me to get a little work, you know, in that particular trade. Today, where is he? In limbo. He was singing, yellow is the code. Yellow is the code. When UNC wins, everybody wins. Today, did he win? Today, he doesn't know if he could go back to class tomorrow or whenever next class was due. Because that ministry no longer exists. Right? The young people who were into that program, those who were into the Youth in Agriculture Homestead program, who were on the cusp of graduating, who were looking forward to getting their 2-acre plots of land, who were looking to get their starter home, who were looking forward to getting the $20,000 to start their business, who done start to plan already what they're going to use the land for and what they're going to plant and doing their research. All who talking, hey, well, the 5 of us or the 6 of us will come together and we could form a little business and we could put our land together and we could do this and we could do that. All who were thinking about all these things, today, they don't know. They don't know what their future holds. They don't know if they're going to get an email next week telling them that this program is put on hold indefinitely. They don't know. So whereas they were looking forward to graduating probably a month or 2 months from now, after doing all of this work, is it to come to naught? And all the other programs that these young people, they're so concerned about the youth, and we need to take care of the youth. Hundreds, thousands of young people in this country who were signed on to these programs. No clue. Because now, what was the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service has now become a department in the Ministry of Sport. So we're going back to the Ministry of Youth, of Sport and Youth Affairs. One minister they put in that ministry. One minister to deal with all of that. The first time, 2010 to 2015, they had 2. Anil Roberts, dealing with the sport aspect, and Stacey Rupnarayan was dealing with the youth affairs aspect. Now you have Philip Watts dealing with this whole ministry, where the youth of this nation are at risk. But you saw it fit to put 3 people in the Ministry of Housing and only 1 minister in the Ministry of Sports and Youth Affairs. What that tells me, youth affairs is going to be put on the back burner. Because all you're hearing he talking about all this time is sports, this and what they're going to do in sports and what they're going to do in sports and all kind of thing. So his focus is on trying to retain the La Hoqueta Talparo seat by building out facilities in that particular constituency for sport for the young people there, but to hell with the US young people throughout the country who looking for answers, who are asking the question, what am I supposed to do? My little stipend that I was getting going to class for the last how many months or whatever it is, what am I supposed to do now? Sit down home? That little stipend that was probably helping out in terms of a bill or 2 at home, helping out mommy and daddy. What are you supposed to do? Nobody ain't telling them anything. Address that. Questions are being asked. Kareem Marcel raised the issue. Somebody should have, Prasad Bisesa should have addressed that at her press conference. Because you have thousands of young people who are asking the question, what next? Did I just waste almost 2 years of my life on something that that had pinned my hopes to? And now what's going to happen? What's going to happen to the Shade House program down in Chagaramas, in Tucker Valley, where you have these young people growing their produce and selling it? They don't have access to land, but they have this facility there where they could come and they could grow their crops and sell it and make money. What is going to happen to those things? Are they going to get a memo or an email telling them don't show up? Don't bother to show up next week? So all of the crops that there, what is going to happen to it? It's just going to wither and die? And then we're going to see those facilities there, those state-of-the-art facilities just going to collapse and fall by the wayside because it's not a priority, it was a PNM project. Forget the politics. Because you know what? I'm certain there are the children of UNC supporters as well who participate in these programs. But they say when UNC wins, everybody wins. Are these young people going to win? Some of you very same UNC supporters who have children and family members who are enrolled in these programs, are you concerned as to what the future of these programs hold for your children? Are you going to call your MP and ask them? Are you going to ask your Prime Minister, the next press conference she calls, whenever she calls it, to address those issues? Because otherwise, the alternative is for these young people, when they have nothing to do, the little stipend that they were getting that was helping them to pay a bill or two or to help themselves, that they're no longer going to be getting. They have to find money somewhere. So will they now become targets, soft targets for the criminal element? I tell you, them thing wasn't making no sense. I tell you that. You're telling me what you want to go and do this program and you want to become an electrician and you want to learn plumbing and air conditioning and refrigeration. I tell you, forget that. And look what come and happen now. And I tell you that, boy, come now, boy. Come, I have something for you to do. Hold that. Put that in your pocket. You take that. And so when they were on a path to a sustainable livelihood, when they were on a path, the right path that they should be taking, all of these young people in the My Path program, right? Who learning discipline. Some of them who looking forward, hoping that when they complete, they could join the police service or the fire service or whatever it is. What is to become of them? But you want to give priority to, hey, what? That is not priority for her, you know. That wasn't priority for her. The young people that you love to talk about, half of me belongs to you and the next half I give to you. And you will have leaders before me and leaders after me, but none will love you like I love you. Really? Mrs. Prasad Bisesa? But what was more important for you is to talk about you want to put a cap on the amount of exemptions that parliamentarians get for cars. That's more important than addressing the young people of this country to let them know what you have in place for them with respect to all of these programs. That was more important for you. What was more important for you is to talk about housing for state sponsors, housing for government officials, rather than addressing these young people and letting them know what is going to happen. Rather than letting them know that. And I feel sorry for those young persons who, because I used to be talking about that all the time, and you all know that. I was advocating for that program, especially that Youth and Agriculture Homestead program. And I know many people listening here would have spoken, because people call me to find out, so how they get, where how to go to be able to sign up for these things. Persons who would, based on what I was saying and others like Jenny and so on, would have listened and encouraged the young ones to go and sign up for these programs. The hoist program, where you're learning to drive, to operate crane and all of these things in the middle of your training. These young people seeing the opportunities to come from these things. And now they're in abeyance. They have no idea what to do, what is going to happen. The whole, it's not even to say, well, okay, we have hope because the UNC maintained this ministry. The ministry has been done away with and has been subsumed into the Ministry of Sport and Youth Affairs, where you're going to put emphasis on sport, because for them everything is sport. You know, sport is the be all and end all for the youths in this country, as if every single young person in this country is inclined towards sports. No talk about other things that they may be interested in. Not everybody wants to kick ball. Not everybody wants to bounce ball. Not everybody wants to hold a bat. You have young people who are musically inclined and who might want to learn to play a musical instrument. You have young people who want to start up their own business. They like cars. They like to fix cars, to tinker in cars and all of these different things. These things, that opportunities that were presented to them. But where are the UNC defenders? All us half all who sit down and chair, mommy, what going on? Come not say anything about the program. I want to know what to do because me ain't nothing. And I see the ministry going through. Same UNC supporters, and all sit down there like little Jack Horner in a corner and nibbling on your nails because they don't know what to tell your child. Because you were benefiting a little bit from the little stipend that they were collecting too. And now that dead. seemingly dead. When UNC wins, you know what to tell your child? Yellow is the code. Yellow is the code. All the things she spoke about, that wasn't a priority. That was not a priority. And so when they talk about the PNM constituencies, where a lot of PNM constituencies and a lot of at-risk youth in these PNM constituencies who were not involved in a lifestyle of crime because of these programs, what are they to do now? Well, hopefully some of them were advanced enough that what they would have learned, they can still, even though they may not be able to get the certificate or the document that says they completed this course of study and they could do, hopefully they learned enough that they would be able to secure a job somewhere or still start a little business or go somewhere where they could finish and get certification, the CVQ certification and whatever else they would have gotten. Hopefully they could find somewhere where they could finish that and continue along that path and not end up in a life of crime. But they're all over the place. Yellow is the code, yellow is the code, yellow hearts all over social media, but nothing. Nothing for these young people. And if they perceive that it's mostly PNM supporters was involved in these programs, worse yet. To hell with all you. But wait, you'll get Colony Orange Part 2. Yeah. $69 a day. Don't worry. You have nothing to do because the program ended, so you're going and breed somebody's daughter and get her pregnant. Hey, we have baby grant for you. You'll get $500 a month to make child. Forget about stipend. You just go and breed people, your child all over the place. Yeah? And for everyone, we'll give you $500 a month. Forget about hype. Forget about hoist. Forget about pipe and fuse. All of these young people fuse where they were learning to become linesmen. TNTech have a lot of linesmen who are up in age. And these young people is looking forward to getting that opportunity. That's a lucrative job. You pay for that in small. So they're seeing that. They were seeing the opportunities just a couple months down the road. I almost finished. I'm almost to the finish line. I'm seeing it. And then you, but how that finish line look like it moves so? Nah, you're hallucinating, all right. And they keep, but how the finish line looking like it moves so? Well, boy, the finish line, and move it, gone. You have no way to run. But wait, go so? But with the finish line, it was just there. I'm not move the finish line, but so forget that race done. You know that you didn't get the memo, but that race done long time. You still running, but go home, go home and relax yourself. Yeah, when we got another race, we gonna tell you. Starts all over. All of you who didn't vote, that's what you voted for. Because we told you, no vote is a vote. No vote is a vote. So if you have a family member who is between 18 to 35 who was enrolled in any of these programs, understand that you making a decision, especially you who live in one of these 9 constituencies that are considered marginal, when you took a decision not to cast your ballot, right? Your relative who is between 18 to 35 and who is enrolled in one of these programs is now in limbo because of your decision. Your decision. Shamfa Kojo lost by what, 100 and something votes? You feel it didn't have over 100 and something people who support the PNM in Tobago West who could have come out and cast the ballot and ensure Shamfa would still be in the parliament? But no, they sit down home. My one vote account. Your whole house, you're supposed to take 2 or 3 people to vote. You say you ain't going, so them say they ain't going neither. So they not see coming to sit down in the parliament on the opposition side to give to do what? Pali say he's sending them there to seek Tobago's interest. How they plan to do that? What experience? Thomas is his name. What experience does he have? He coming to sit down in the parliament to do what? Sleep? You better go on the other side, because I don't want nobody sit down behind me snoring loud. I don't have time for that. So anyway. Andel George is saying oil and gas money is down. We can't afford that stuff. So, how do we diversify the economy? How do we diversify the economy? They're talking about gate and how the last administration cut gate and they closed the gate and all of that. But these are opportunities for young people. Again, Republic Bank I saw they were offering a program when they have a program in place now where they're giving entrepreneurs a loan of up to $100,000, and they are giving you training as well. So it's not just come and borrow how much ever money you want and then that's it, and then they leave you. No, you're required to do, I think, is a 2-week training with respect to business management and so on, so that you have a better chance of your business succeeding. All of these are things that we could have guided these young people into when they finish the course. The equipment and so on that were purchased, right? Young people seeing, I could learn to operate a crane. Even if you don't get opportunities in Trinidad, you have opportunities abroad. You could go abroad and do that job and send money back home for your family to support them. And you're young. You could always come back home at some point in time. They have need for these positions. Nothing for that. Akash shouldn't ask about that. He's starting to ask about salary, and if you're going to cut your salary, and if you're going to donate to the Children's Life Fund. No, the first question you should have asked Akash, what is going to become of all of these programs that were offered to these young people under the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service? These young people want to know. They don't have the opportunity to come and sit down in a press conference like this and ask you directly. So I am asking on their behalf, what is going to become of these programs? Tell us, tell them, so they know how to operate. Plenty of them who were saying, all right, I'm writing exams in June, but when I finish, I want to go and do this course, or I want to go and do that course, who had already planned to participate in those courses because they saw value in it. You know why? Because they have a friend who did it and they're doing well now, and they decide they want to go and do the same thing. Change your plans. Change your plans. But we will see what will come of that. Kush, was the time there? No, I don't know. Says just now. So I'm here in Barbados. Got here on Tuesday morning. My first time in Barbados. But second time in Barbados, but first time actually coming off the plane, because the last time I was here was 2 years ago en route to Jamaica, and the plane had to make several stops, one of which was Barbados. So I was on the tarmac, but we didn't get to the plane. So I'm here now. I'm leaving the airport. I'm looking at the condition of the roads from the airport to the hotel. I said, you know, Trinidad, people cussing. Oh, the road bad, and the road is worse, and the road's this, and the road's that. And I'm looking at the condition of the roads, potholes, all the way from the airport to the hotel. Right? All the way from the airport to the hotel. I say, wow. And the biggest issue in Trinidad and Tobago is that most of the complainers are people who have never traveled and who have not seen, and they make it seem as if Trinidad and Tobago is the worst. We have the worst roads and the worst this and the worst that. Cost of living so high. Some of my colleagues who live in Barbados, who have been sitting in our boardroom with for the last 2 days during our board meeting, not running till after 7, 8 o'clock in the night, because there's a full agenda we have. And we only finished this morning. That part of the program finished. So our board meeting was for 2.5 days. And my colleagues from Barbados, hearing them talk about Barbados is prohibitively expensive. It is so expensive. All they're saying, Barbados is expensive. The cost of living is high. And the guy who picked us up from the airport, taking us to the hotel, right? And he's telling us about the cost of living here, how much it costs to purchase land, if you have to purchase property. Born and bred, Bajan. And he's telling me some of the prices that they have to pay for stuff. And I'm saying, look how, and when I'm telling them about Trinidad, and they're saying, wow, well, you're lucky there, boy. Well, you're really lucky there. We wish, like, I need to move to Trinidad. That's what they're saying. And while we cussing government back home, things so bad, and this and that. Hey, but all I want, I have no issue with Mia Motley. Let me make that lucidly clear. But everybody talks in Trinidad who talking about, oh, they wish Mia Motley was the Prime Minister of Trinidad, and because she's so nice and she's so caring, and nice and caring is good. But that could only take you so far. Right? And the things that we take for granted in Trinidad, you have people in Barbados wish that they had that. And I learned that over the last couple of days. And more of my colleagues will be arriving today from across the Caribbean, from Jamaica and St. Lucia, Dominica, Antigua, Barbuda, Guyana, all over the country. They will be arriving for the course of the next, because the conference starts tomorrow and runs until Wednesday. And then we leave on Tuesday. And I'm sure I'm going to be hearing the same things from a lot of them. My colleague, my fellow board member from St. Lucia, who's telling me about when they go to the hospital, you have to pay an admission fee before the doctor see you. You have to pay an admission fee, and then depending on what treatment you get, you're going to have to pay a little more money for what the services that you would have received. But meanwhile, in Trinidad, we complaining. The guy who brought us here from the airport. So I said, "You all have free healthcare here?" He said, "Yes, free healthcare, but the wait time is extremely long." I said, "Really?" He said, yeah. You go to the hospital, prepare yourself for at least 6 to 8 hours wait. I say, wow, boy. I thought it was Trinidad alone. Yeah, and they have a population of what? 285,000 people. We have a population of 1.4 million. And they're complaining. They're complaining about the wait time. And their population is 1/5 that of ours. So you would think with such a smaller population, the wait time should be less. No. Long wait time. Potholes in the road. High cost of living. But we told the PNM. Blame the PNM for that. Yeah, but Kamala's going to come and solve the problem. You know why? She's going to remove VAT on 7,000 food items, and all of a sudden the cost of living is going to go down. Remember they promised you? They tell you, Rowley, under Kamala, the cost of premium was this, and the cost of super was that. And we still had regular gas. And then Rowley come and he do this and he do that. Well, I'm waiting to see when the price of fuel is going to go down at the pumps. They said they're going to remove the property tax. And they're going to, all those who pay the property tax, you're going to get a refund. I am sure if they do a poll, you will see that a lot of the people who pay their property tax have no problems paying it. Because when I was campaigning, people were telling me, listen, I don't mind paying the property tax, I just want to see where my money going. So if it is I had to pay property tax, I expect my garbage is going to be collected on time. I expect that when a pothole appears in my road and I speak to my counselor mustn't be able to give me no excuse because I pay in property tax. I expect that hole to be fixed. If it is that a street light blow, I pay in my property tax. I expect that to be fixed. People have been using that as leverage to get their local government representatives to work. A lot of people saying that, I pay in my property tax. I expect this. I pay in my property tax. I expect that. So now, when they stop the property tax and they refund you, you could no longer say, I pay in property tax, so I expect this and I expect that. No. It's whenever the corporation get money, you will get through. Some people are happy because their receipts, they're glad to show, hey, I pay in property tax. Strengthen your title hold on your property. Because we know the bubble that takes place in some of these institutions, these state enterprises. When you think you own your property, and next thing is because people come in to tell you they're holding a deed to your property. Madness. You could go to court with your documents. Look how I pay in property tax. It's me they were sending the bill to, the assessment to. I pay in my property tax for the last how many years? We're telling them about. No, but your beloved government, your populist government that wants to please everybody, telling you we are going to repeal the Property Tax Act, no more property tax, and we will refund those of you who paid their property tax already. So you get back $600 and something, okay. You get back $900, okay. But just know, when you come home one evening and the street light blow, you call the counselor, you can't say, I pay in my property tax, I need that fixed. Sir, which property tax? The one that you get refunded for? Forget that. So when you have 2-3 potholes on your street and you call, I expect that to be fixed because I pay in my property tax. That's what I pay in property tax for. People understand. So when a whole week pass and the garbage truck don't come, and you call the counselor, and the counselor say, well, here what now? The contractor on a strike because the corporation ain't get money and we owe in. So you say until we get money, until they get some kind of payment, they're not doing anything. So that garbage had to stay there. Big rat and cockroach, you take that. The 600 or the 900 you got refunded. Hey, what? Pay somebody to put it in a truck and let them carry it down the road. Backward. Backward. They love to talk about forward ever, backward never. The other way around. We going backward. Right? But they will make magic. I don't know. They'll probably hire printer and print more money, man. Don't know where it's going to come from. Brace yourself. Because remember, they want to preserve the foreign exchange. So, the foreign exchange reserve. So, when you see, you go in the bank and you look up on the board and you're accustomed seeing selling 6.779, 6.7999, and all of a sudden you see 6.85, 6.9. You go 3 weeks later and you see it going to 701. Don't complain. You vote for that or you didn't vote, and as such, you voted for that. But they told you that in their manifesto, they will allow the exchange rate to slide within a crawling band. They have no control over the band and how it's going to slide. No control. Those say I didn't tell later. Folks, it is 2:23. I can probably take maybe 2 quick calls because I'm seeing messages coming in from my colleagues asking where am I. So, okay. Right. Um, 29 Super C is saying that's like 15 years ago. It must be expensive today because Barbados under the IMF program. Chris Hamilton is saying I went Barbados 5 times and it's not cheap for real. And the Bajans are saying that. They are surprised compared to what the cost of things in Trinidad and what they pay for the same things here. All I see in this hotel is only Blue Waters. Blue Waters doing very well over here. That's all they're serving you. Blue Waters, and well, if you want sparkling water, well, you get in Perrier or whatever it is, but only Blue Waters. So, when I see the troll Dave Arjun has arrived, he's asking, is it true Jenny ended up in St. Anne's? She stopped taking her mad pills. You take your mad pills, Dave? But since you're here, Dave, you could help us with what is going to happen with all those programs under the Ministry of Youth Development. You could help us with that, Dave, since that's the party you support, right? When UNC wins, everybody wins. Did these young people win? Help us with that now, Dave. Also, Dave, when can I expect to see the cost or the price of super going down at the pumps, Dave? I'm looking forward to that. Because remember, let's say that, right? That was one of the promises you all made. So when can we look forward to that, Dave? Just asking. And since Ghana say they have no gas for anybody, and Grenada basically saying, well, here what we are no proven reserves here, so nothing, we don't know what's going to happen with that. So what's going to happen with those 2 things, Dave? Help us out now. I see a Minister of Trade all of a sudden he talking about Africa, the continent of Africa, and the amount of trade that they plan to do with the continent of Africa. But I thought one of your ministers of housing, Dave, just the other day was telling us about Nigeria, and nobody wants to go to Nigeria, and we should be signing agreements with countries like America, the USA, and Canada, where everybody wants to go. Nobody wants to go to Nigeria, Dave. That's what Philip Edward Alexander said. But that is at variance with what your new Minister of Trade, Kama Maraj, is saying, that he intends to focus on Africa. How them Ghana yam seeds looking now, why, Dave? Remember you is Mr. Yam Yam Yam, and Rowley went and got yam seeds from Ghana. But now your Minister of Trade, who is of East Indian descent, sees the value in trading with Africa. What Africa have to offer, Dave, other than yam seeds? What Africa have to offer? You need to call up Kama Maraj and tell him, hey, we don't want no yam from Ghana, boy. We don't want no yam seeds. Well, let's see what he's going to bring back for us now. Which one of the African countries he going to, Dave? Not Nigeria, not Ghana. Where you going? South Africa? Zimbabwe? Yeah, Dave? He didn't mention any of the other 7 continents, only Africa, Dave. So it seems he sees the value in the African continent, that Africa has more than just people with slave master names. Apparently, he got that memo that the rest of you all didn't. Where are you going to bring back, Dave? African fabric? I don't know. Interesting. I found it very interesting that Mr. Marad said that. Of all the places. He didn't say Europe. He didn't say North America. He didn't say South America. He didn't say Asia. He said Africa. So all of a sudden they see the value in Africans and the value that the Africans could bring to this country. I wonder if that included yam and yam seeds, Dave. Ask him now. Because you're UNC, you might be able to ask quicker than me. He in the Senate, I will be in the lower house, the House of Representatives. So 2 different chambers. Maybe I might bounce him up in the tea room or in the corridor or somewhere. I could probably ask him if he intends to bring more Ghana yam seeds here. Oh Lord. So I'm seeing someone asking why people think only PNM could run this country. Remember, if UNC does bad, Trinidad does bad stuff, but bad talking the government of the day. You know, Keyshawn Marcelin, let me ask you, when for the last 10 years you all were complaining and bad talking the PNM, right? Did you ask that question? When you all were bad talking the PNM? When the PNM were making efforts? Were you all asking? Nobody is saying that only the PNM could run the country. But we know what the UNC has given. And when we do a comparative, right? When we do a comparative, nobody is wishing for the UNC to do bad, but they really haven't started off on the best foot. So you need to prepare and take in front. Because when you make decisions, and why, and to answer your question, Keyshawn, you see, as a parent, just to draw the example, if you have children, you want what is best for your children, but you're not going to give your children everything that they want. So your child only want to eat fast food, KFC, pizza. They don't want to eat normal food. Are you going to go and buy fast food for them because that's what they want and you just want your children to love you and say the best of things about you? So you're giving them things. Your child only want to eat sweetie and a set of sweets that rot in the teeth and drink a set of soft drink that could give them juvenile diabetes. You're going to give them all of these things because they ask for that? Why? Just to make them happy, right? That making sense. And then later on down the road, when they get big and fat and they develop all kind of chronic diseases, juvenile diabetes, or they get high blood pressure in the 20s and all of these different things because of mommy and daddy wanting to please the children and give them what they want, not what is best for them, not taking the tough decisions, right? It's because no, they want this and I just want my children to be happy. And so I've given them what they want. No, they want to hang out with these persons and they want to go online with their friends and they want the latest iPhone. So I have to find the money to give it to them because that's what they want. And I have to do all the things to make them happy. And when you can't give them what it is that they want, it's rebellion. And this is what we are saying. The UNC is making all kinds of promises. The PNM is the party that makes the tough decisions. They say, look, yes, we want to give the population everything that they want, but we don't have the money for it. And we're trying to see what we could do to get the money to do as much as we can, but we don't have it. So we're not going to make promises to you to get your vote when we know we cannot sustain these things. Even if we give you the 10%, the ability to be able to continue to pay that 10%, and then for future negotiations to have to start at a minimum of 10, we cannot afford that. So we're not going to come and promise you these things or make an effort to give it to you, and then later on down the road, there are consequences. The PNM always makes the tough decisions. And that is why the PNM is unpopular. Because when Kevin Ramnarine read that statement in December of 2014, time to build up, not tear down Petrotrin, and he spoke about how many refineries, 60 refineries had shut down around the world in the last 5 years. And he went further to break down and tell you all the different parts of the world in which these refineries shut down. And I've always asked the question, why did he put that in that speech? What was he telling the nation? And he said, Petrotrin, and by extension, Trinidad and Tobago, is not immune from that reality. In other words, Petrotrin is not immune from shutting down. The refinery is not immune from shutting down. Trinidad and Tobago is not immune from going through what all these other countries, these 60 refineries that shut down, we're not immune from that. And he said the only way forward for Petrotrin is to increase production, right, of oil and gas. And what happened after that? 2 months after that, the head of Petrotrin, Khalid Hassan Ali, did an interview with the Oil and Gas Journal, and he said Petrotrin cut back on their production, cut back on their exploration and production activities because they didn't have the money for it. So if Kevin Ramnarine is telling you the only way forward for Petrotrin for the sustainability of the refineries for Petrotrin to find more oil and find more gas, which means you have to refine more, not refine, sorry, you have to engage in more exploration and more production. And the head of Petrotrin, who they put there, Khalid Hassan Ali, is telling oil and gas, we cut back on exploration and we cut back on production. Two totally divergent perspectives. So Petrotrin went in the opposite direction to what Kevin Ramnarine told you they needed to do in order for the refinery to remain profitable, to remain in operation. And so he was basically telling you that is a possibility down the road. But they kicked the can down the road till it reached to the point where the PNM had no choice but to take action. And what happened? And what happened? The PNM get licks fit. But the population forgave the PNM in 2020 because the refinery shut down in 2018. The population voted in 2020 and they gave the PNM a second mandate. And the PNM has been trying now. Look Guyana with all the oil that they have. 675,000 barrels of oil per day. At no point in time in Trinidad and Tobago's energy history have we ever produced 675,000 barrels of oil per day. And the government of Guyana is telling you they don't want any refinery. They're not going to build any refinery. They are not going to invest in any refinery. They said they will put out an RFP inviting the private sector to come and build a refinery with a capacity of about 36,000 barrels of oil per day. The government will provide the land, and that's about all the government is will. That's the sum total of government involvement. They don't want to invest in it. They don't want an ownership stake, nothing. And they have all this oil. So why are they not investing in a refinery of their own? Why are they looking to now send oil to the US, to refineries in the United States of America, rather than build their own? And they have the land space for it. So Guyana is, with all the oil and with all the money they get in, running from establishing an oil refinery. But we in Trinidad keep talking about the refinery and the refinery and the refinery. We don't have no money. Kamla told us they don't have money. And they have the treasury and fumes. But still talking about reopening the refinery, and now they have to do an assessment, and they have to do a feasibility study, and all of these things. That was done. The PNM, you know what the cost is. And here it is that you have a company from Nigeria that is willing to invest their money to reopen the refinery at no cost to the state. So we don't have to worry about the government finding money to give pay increases to the workers at the refinery and all these other problems that we had when the refinery was in operation. We now have a foreign company, just as what Guyana is looking to do, get foreign entities to come and build and run a refinery without any government involvement. And you have a government is saying they're not supporting that. And they will not honor any agreement that the past administration signed with a company that after all these years, we finally get somebody who is willing to come and spend the money to get the refinery back up and running. And they're telling you they will reopen it. Where the money coming from? Can't tell you where the money is going to come from, but making promises that they cannot keep and willing to run a company, run this company out of Trinidad that is willing to invest their money, is now in talks with TPHL to get the refinery up and running. The closest we've come in the last 7 years. And they are willing to tell this company, hit the road, and then fight up for the next 5 years to tell you, well, we ain't had the money, and we can't afford it right now, when you should have had, entertain the company, hear what it is that they're offering, and proceed with it. But just because it was a PNM thing, we're not interested. And that's the problem. And I see someone asking why Roger don't bid. Roger has no money. He don't have any money to build. He can't even buy the refinery in Trinidad. He hoping that Kamla will do what the PNM didn't want to do. Hand him the refinery so that he could go and now pledge the refinery as collateral to get money. So, I mean, that's like you selling your house and the person come and tell you, well, here, what now? I want to buy the house, but I have the money for it. So sign over the house in my name now. And let me go and see if it is I could take a loan against your house. Who doing that? Why go from here? You come and tell me nonsense about I must sign over my house to you. I don't know you. Sign my house to you so you could go and now look to see if you could get a loan using my house as collateral. You're mad? That's the issue. And that's what Roger hoping for. When Roger could the government kept giving them opportunities. This last round of bidding that included Oando. Patriotic Energies was included in that, but only submit a document supposedly a $1.5 billion US dollar wire transfer receipt that turned out to be fraud. A fraudulent document. So that is the extent to which Roger and them were willing to go to try and defraud the state to get the refinery. If you have 1.5, because they said the money came to their account, right? The money came from whichever financier abroad. So up to now, the money ain't hit the account yet. How long does it take? But you took this document that you claimed was proof that 1.5 billion US coming into your bank account and submitted it to Scotiabank, the evaluators. You submitted that to them. So up to now, you had the money, Roger? Where the 1.5 billion that you told these people was coming to your account? You ain't get through, so the 1.5 billion should still be there. So as Mr. Ragbir is asking, take that 1.5 billion and go and bid to build a refinery in Guyana, where they have all the oil. The government even said that they would be willing to assist in providing oil at a reduced price, but they're not willing to invest anything else. And that's the problem. So when Roger wanted to bid for the whole refinery, he wanted the refinery and all of Petrotrin. Where the money coming from? Where the money coming from to do that? We asking, show us proof that the money came into your account. Because since you say you want the receipt wasn't fraud, then the money is supposed to be in your account, because it's almost a year now since that money was supposed to be there. Go in the bank, get read out a bank statement and come and show the public. Call a press conference and show, look, 1.5 billion US dollars actually came into our account and it's here and we have it to be able to purchase the refinery. That's more than they need. More than they need. Because remember, they had offered the government 700 million US for the refinery. 1.5 billion US is double what they offered. So you have more than enough. You could buy the refinery in cash and you still have an additional 800 million US dollars that you could use to get the refinery back up and running. What's the problem? Well, how come Roger never called a press conference to tell the population, look, the money here, we have the money. Oando, the government don't need to negotiate with Oando. We have the US here to buy the refinery cash. That never happened because the money never existed. And that alone should have told Kamala Prasad, sir, that is nobody to get into bed with, because they are fraudsters. Why should I ask them now to provide the proof? Come out and provide the proof. Since you say it wasn't a fraudulent document, provide us with the proof. Show us the money. It do exist. So again, I am not saying that only the PNM could run the country, but what you need is a government that is responsible, that will tell the population, this is what it is. This is what the issue is. This is where our financial situation is. And this is what we could do with what we have. Not promise this, promise that, promise everybody, all kind of thing. Just to win an election. Then you get into office now and you're now looking to do due diligence. And you're backstepping and saying, well, we might have to put this promise on hold because we don't have the money for this. And we don't have the money for that. So you're setting the stage now for the next 5 years. So all we're going to be hearing is, it had no money. The PNM left the treasury empty. So it's not that we didn't mean to fulfill the promise. We just don't have the money now because the PNM left the treasury empty. So we will be hearing for the next 5 years, the PNM left the treasury empty. And the PNM left the treasury empty. So it have no money. That's all we're going to hear. It is what it is. What we going to do? For now, that is where we are at. So I just needed to touch a little bit on those things before it gets too much. So I see someone here is saying, I won't, because to build a successful TNT, we need 2 strong political parties. And I agree with you. But what would make the UNC easier for people to accept and not to be feeling uneasy is if you give us quality people that we can have confidence in. And that is why in 2010, you had a lot of PNM supporters voting for the People's Partnership, because there were persons who were presented to the population who even the PNM said, maybe this mightn't be so bad, because Winston Dukaran is there. And I know what Dukaran is, a man of principle, right? His name never get called up in no wrong stand-up. I see names like Vernon Dilemma. I'm seeing names like Timothy Hamel-Smith. I'm seeing names like Gillian Lucky, names like Prakash Ramada at that time, names like Anand Ramlogan. Back then, these people had reputations that preceded them. They were seen as being people who worthy of serving in government. So a lot of PNM people say, I vex with the PNM, and these things I hear about Manning. I feel I'll give them a chance because there were those persons there. This time around, you don't have that. You have people like Roger Alexander, whose reputation is no good. All kind of thing you have people saying about this man and stuff that he's alleged to have done as a police officer. He wouldn't give up his career as a police officer unless it is whatever was offered to him was lucrative. When you have to buy people to come into office, that could never work. People like Anil Roberts. All you have to do is to go on Google, it was Anil, and you will see the newspaper article that is going to come up that speaks about former finance minister Larry Hawaii, who told the media it was Anil Roberts who brought Adolphus Daniel to him. Adolphus Daniel, who got the $34 million for no work done, not a stick of chalk, not a pen or a pencil. This is what Larry Hawaii said. Anil Roberts brought this man to him. You as a minister, why are you bringing a contractor to speak to the Minister of Finance to discuss the minister, this man getting a significant contract without going through proper tendering procedure? So you bypass the Central Tenders Board and give a sole select contract to this man. You didn't put it out for tender to see if anybody else could come in to offer the same services for a smaller price that could benefit the citizens. Sole select. It's not me say so. Larry Hawaii, who was a member of the cabinet, who acted as prime minister of this country on more than one occasion, he said that to the media. Anil Roberts never sued him. But yet still Anil Roberts is back today sitting in the parliament, sitting as a minister of government after life sport debacle, after the Hoop of Life debacle that Gary Griffith as Minister of National Security had to intervene. He had to intervene into those programs in terms of the amount of money that was being spent. Over 70-something million dollars for Hoop of Life. We saw life sport go from 6 million to 400 million. How many people get killed under that program? In my own constituency, people get killed. I bounce up people while campaigning telling me, well, when Auntie Cams was there under life sport, I used to be eating, I used to get my little dust. At least I was getting my little 1,500 a month, my little dust. And I used to just had to go and sign my name. People boldly telling me that, that all he had to do was to go and sign his name and he getting his little dust. That is the problem. So it's not a case that we say any PNM is better, but what they offer in terms of the people to serve. The PNM never had to pay nobody millions of dollars to leave their job to become a minister of government. We went through 10 years. How many ministers you hear accused of being bag of money minister and taking kickback and all? 10 years and you ain't hear none of that. The only scandal they come to talk about to claim Foster Cummins had a bed in his office and he used to be with them young girl and them. But you ain't hear no allegation any minister thief any money, any minister take any kickback and all of that for 10 years. But for less than 5 years, 3 years into the People's Partnership and we were hearing about that. Jack Warner, who was a part of that administration, told us ministers came in, couldn't afford 2 doubles and a solo. But 3 years in, they pocket deep. They own 3 and 4 houses, all kind of cars, and the amount of property and stuff that they own after 3 years. 10 years, you ain't hear none of that under the PNM. And that is the kind of thing that you want. Not people who just coming in there for themselves. But we're going to tell you, it is what it is. So folks, I had to run back downstairs, Pearl is saying, I remember the first discussion I had with you was the contract the UNC signed with the Salcott for $7 million a month, and we hope the PNM would have been there when the new contract came up. In 2030, our worst fears have been realized. Exactly 2034, Pearl. 2034. They renew the contract till 2034. And that's the problem. So we stuck with that and had to pay that money. Same way when they canceled the smelter plant and cost Labrie and Point Fortin and all of these areas affected by the closure of Petrotrin, 9,800 jobs. I didn't make that up. That came from a cabinet note when they came into office in 2010. They did a feasibility study before they shut down the contract, and it showed 9,800 jobs would have been created from that project if they had continued it. But they still went ahead because they told the population if the smelter plant will give you cancer and kill you. That was the only rationale for them shutting down that project. Today, had they kept that project and not played politics, all who talking about diversification of the economy, we would have been earning millions of US dollars from that smelter plant. Because the cabinet note said the smelter plant will be profitable at $2,200 per metric ton for aluminum. Today is about $2,700 or $2,800 US per metric ton. How much money we would have been making? How many jobs would have been created from that, and the fence line communities that would have benefited from that project? But no, we play in politics. Folks, we will chat again soon. I can't tell you which day today is Sunday, and I'm here until Thursday. So I think the conference ends on Wednesday, so I may be able to do something on Thursday morning, right? Because my flight isn't until in the afternoon. So I should have some free time on Thursday. So Tuesday definitely can't do anything because we start promptly at 8 o'clock. So, yeah. Natalie Superville says, Trini is too happy they won 1986 again. We will monitor. As I said, I'll be in the parliament, so we will see what happens. But so far, they haven't started off on the very best foot at all, right? The removal of that demerit system, I know is going to cause problems, especially for people who figure they shouldn't have to pay, they shouldn't have to spend money for car insurance. Because they say, well, they don't get back nothing, so why spending that money for? I know a man who says, well, listen, he lives in Arima and he goes to work in Tunapuna, and there's a short drive. So he just goes to work and comes back home. So he don't think he needed to have any car insurance because that's just a short commute. We have people who think like that. We have people who out there who shouldn't be on the road, who buy their license, didn't go through the proper procedure, buy their license, and yet still they're out on the road. So when you doing what you're supposed to do, obeying the highway code, as they say, and somebody run into you, mash up your car, no insurance, expired license. And when you think, and that happened to me a couple of years ago, a man broadside me in St. James, he coming out, I on the main road, and he coming out from a side street and looking in the wrong direction. I tried to pull away. He come out, broadside the whole left side of my car, right? Pull to the side now, come here, oh, he's sorry, thing. Yeah, okay, you're sorry, but at the end of the day, the damage to your car, the damage to my car, ain't no way that's settling outside of the insurance. So we have to go through the insurance. He says to me, all right, well, he go in and get his insurance certificate in the car. I go into my car to get mine. And by the time I come out my car, only to see Mr. Man jump in his car and bust out. Gone. So clearly he had no insurance, right? But you damaged my car. All I was able to do was to get his license plate number. I went to the St. James police station, made my report, and they telling me, well, you know, sometimes you did accident, things like these. The person who driving the car is not the owner, or the car sell and they didn't transfer it and all kind of things. So we mightn't even find out who the real owner is. So that's what the police telling me. But fortunately, I didn't have to fight up, right? Because my car was insured at my company, Guardian Group, and I got through easy. But not everybody gets through that way. But this guy should never have been on the road. Mash up the whole left side of my car. But I really didn't have to fight up too much. But for the people who have to fight up and who complain, and then when the insurance company, what they give them is not enough, I'll tell earlier. That's life. Where is this thing? So folks, we'll chat again soon. All right, so enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Enjoy the rest of your Mother's Day. Take care. For those of you who are still fortunate enough to still have your mother, right? You're lucky indeed. Cherish her because you never know when they will no longer be around. All right, so take care of mommy. Spoil her today, and not just today, every day. HRIHK says no walking, no talking, no meeting the people. I remember when we were fighting for Franklin Khan, he met everyone all over his constituency. Oddly, when he won, guess who showed up at the regional corporation? Very true, Jamat. That too is very true. HRIHK. As another thing, as MPs, we need to address. Right? We need to go back and talk to the people. Meet the people. There are some constituents that I didn't get to meet because the campaign was too short, but it's my intention to visit every area that I did not touch. Right? Because we need to reconnect with the people. Has to be done. No two ways about it. I'm talking on both parties need to do that. Yes, Rodney, thank you for that. The stand your ground legislation. So you're giving people making it easier for people to get firearm users licenses, and you're also giving them license to kill. That's what stand your ground legislation is. License to kill. When it is that you can have somebody like Johnny Abraham, who some time ago, just over a year or so ago, appeared on a UNC platform, and in speaking to the issue of home invasions, he said, if somebody come into your home, you do what you had to do, and then I will tell you what to tell the police. If somebody breaks into your home and is a home invasion, and you deal with them in a way that it is self-defense, nobody needs to tell you what to say, because what happened should be sufficient for you to be able to get off. So for a former senior police officer to tell people that's craziness. That don't make no sense to me. You should not be coaching people or teaching people what to say in order for them to get off. Somebody broke into your home, they pose a threat to your life, and in the course of that, you injure them or you kill them. Tell the police that. Why you need a policeman to tell you, well, here what? This is what you had to say, right? See this happen and that happen, and so on. So when your next door neighbor drink too much, he decide to have a little lime home, and whole day he playing loud music and drinking, and 2 o'clock in the morning music still blasting, and you get up to go and ask him to turn it down because you have to go to work and the children have to go to school. And he have a gun and he pull it out to start brandishing it and want to play threatening you and tell you whatever. And he didn't realize that the safety off, and he bust a cap and you catch, or somebody in the vicinity end up catching a bullet. Stand your ground. I felt threatened. What stand your ground legislation does, it gives you the ability to be able to say you felt threatened. Right? So even if you could de-escalate the situation, stand your ground says you don't have to de-escalate. You could stand your ground, play man. How I gonna? I'll let you know one time. Don't come around me. And instead of you trying to tell the person, no, relax yourself or whatever it is, you're hyping it up to give you cause to be able to use your gun and then say it was in self-defense. We have children going to school with ice pick and a screwdriver and all of these things, attacking their fellow students with these tools. You think they're not going to have access to the parents' gun? Daddy, you go, let me shoot now. You're going on the range, I could go with you, let me shoot now. The woman who shot the guy in his head some time ago, right, who she said was a home invasion or whatever it is, and she put out her hand and shoot him, and he died. She wasn't licensed to use the gun. The firearm user's license belonged to the husband. But he gone, she have access to the gun in case anybody come in the house, look at it. That's a problem. So when you tell your children to, mommy and daddy going out, but the gun in the safe, if it is you hear any noise and anybody come, you know where to go and get it. And then what? They invite their friends over to show them mommy gun and daddy gun, and the gun goes off and somebody child dead. All of these things, but they're not thinking about that. Populism. Yeah, I want a gun, boy. But for 5 years, all they're telling us, people suffering. They're struggling. They can't make ends meet. They can't buy food for their children. They can't buy laptop. But they have money to buy gun. Gun cheap? How much for a gun? Banks going to be giving loans to people now to go and buy gun? So that's more important for you. Instead of taking a loan to buy laptop or send your children to school, you're going to take a loan to buy a gun? Where get any money from to buy bullets? Because you're required to go on the gun range frequently and do practice. That's required. Bullets cheap, but you're suffering. You're living in a 2x4. You're living in a little shack, but you have money to go and buy gun. Okay, well, maybe the government might give a subsidy, a gun subsidy. Because you know everything for them is subsidies, right? So they'll give us subsidies to enable you to be able to purchase a gun. So what that tells me, expect the home invasions to continue. They can't stop it. Expect the robberies to continue and the burglaries to continue and the kidnappings to continue. So we are giving you a fighting chance, because we're not going to stop any of these things. We're not going to stop the home invasions and the kidnappings and all of that. We're not going to stop it. Do expect to see a decline in it. So what we're going to do is give you a gun. So when it happens to you, you will be able to at least defend yourself. But it's whoever is the quicker draw. So when the gunman come in and he have his gun and you have yours, let's hope you are the quicker draw and you shoot him before he shoot you, and then relieve you of your gun. So now he come with one, but leaves with two. Or if you have 3 guns in your home, he came with 1, but left with 3. So now he is well armed. well armed. And you know, once you know when people carrying a gun, some of them must have this pouch over their shoulder. More likely than not, you're right. So hey, look, you have a gun, boy. And you heading out you went to Price Mart by yourself, and have your gun strap over your shoulder in your pouch. So you're a walking target. And you're pushing your trolley, and then you're taking out your goods and putting it in the back of your car, and all of a sudden a man walk up behind you and stick a gun in your back and tell you, don't move. Don't move. How much time are you going to get now to open this thing, this pouch, to be able to draw a gun? By the time he realizes what you're trying to do, 2 shots in your back, and he relieve you of your gun and your car, and he gone. Just by this thing being over your shoulder makes you a walking target. But we will see. They want that. So we're good. Folks, we'll chat again soon. All right? Take care. Thursday, I'll try for Thursday morning. So we'll see. Again, happy Mother's Day to all. I saw somebody just now saying they hate their mother. Well, not everybody loves their parents because, you know, some parents will not have the best. But I don't have either one of mine, and I wish they were still here. Denise Bramble says, visit Malabar Phase 1. My friend was waiting. Definitely, Denise. So you can send me a WhatsApp message with your friend's name, where and the exact address, and I will pay them a visit. Or you could send me their number, private message, and I'll call and reach out to them. Slimy So says his or her mother was evil. Well, I know some people who had mothers who were not at the best, as I said, who were wicked. So I guess some people, not everybody, was fortunate to have a loving mother. But for those of you who did, and if she's still alive, take care. So we'll chat again, sir. So folks, let me see what we could do on Thursday. All right? So enjoy the rest of your weekend and take care.